Seasons for the first time since 05 and 06.
No hype, no filter. Just the truth about your teams, your city, and the people who care about it most.
The reality is the expectations are higher now for this club than they were in 2019 and 2020 when the Padres hadn't made the playoffs that many times.
He's been here. He knows this city. And now he's leading the conversation every single day. Live and local on 97.3 The Fan.
This is fun. We're doing this for fun. This is fun. Have fun. Enjoy the fun with us having fun.
Now, here's Braden and Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? And a happy Tuesday, everybody out there in America's finest city. He is not Frank Marchese. He is Kyle Ovenshire. Yes. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Frank, a little bit under the weather, as we heard yesterday. I think it was because of, I think he was fine until everybody made him just say, I am Batman. And then after that, it was pretty much over with his voice. So Kyle's in today. He'll be helping us out. So we appreciate him jumping in the reins today. And we will get you through a pretty good show and a fun show today as we talk about Padres baseball against the Brewers yesterday. We're going to talk about, a lot of different Padres topics that kind of came out of last night over the last couple of days. As of right now, the Padres on a little bit of a winning streak. They've won 3 in a row. They sit 8.5 games out of first place in the National League West standings, if anybody's still looking at those. And in terms of the wild card standings, the Padres still a game out. Arizona beat up on Colorado last night 7-0. Or actually, it was 7-0 for a while. Ended up winning 9-0. And so they've been on a couple of winners now. Arizona is in the final wild card spot, tied with Philadelphia, who also won yesterday. They were able to overcome the Cardinals. So we will see what happens again tonight. Arizona will take on Colorado for game 2. Philadelphia is in St. Louis again, taking on the Cardinals. Padres get ready for the Brewers today as they will try to fight their way into a playoff spot. Still plenty of games left, but it's going to be a little difficult, I think, with the way some of these teams are playing. I said it yesterday. I don't think Philadelphia survives this. I really don't. Not with the schedule that they have, not the way they've been playing baseball. As of late, it's been a little bit better, but I just don't think Philadelphia can make it through. They do have good starting pitching, which definitely gives you a little bit of an advantage, but the Padres trailing by a game right now behind Arizona and Philly. Cubs are continuing to dominate, and we'll see if they could catch Milwaukee at any point in time during the season. I thought they might be able to, and in catching Milwaukee, they might put themselves into being the best team in the National League. They've played like that, it seems like, over the course of the last couple of months. Chicago now 5 games behind Milwaukee in the standings in the National League Central. Last night, solid win for the Padres against a young up-and-coming pitcher that is going to be here for a long time. I mean, Henderson is one of the best. You could see why last night they didn't want to trade Henderson in a deal with Tarik Skubal. You could see why they wanted to keep a guy like him, especially not for 2 weeks of Tarik Skubal. I still think the Brewers should have traded for Tarik Skubal. I think they would have actually put themselves in a position to potentially win not only the National League pennant, but also a World Series. I don't think they do that by adding Dustin May, who the Padres will see tomorrow. But you could see why they were a little hesitant about sending off Henderson. He did really well last night. He pitched incredibly well. He gave up the bad pitch to Ty France. Ty France obviously saw him extremely well. And then Jackson Merrill, the good at bat, leading to a home run. And he could have had an opposite field home run to left center field. He just got underneath that ball earlier in the contest. But, the Padres beat Milwaukee last night 3-2 on another comeback thriller. Another comeback thriller against Milwaukee. Probably not as exciting as it was when they were in Milwaukee, when Gavin Sheets hit that home run late in the game to eventually prevent getting swept by Milwaukee. But another 3-2 comeback thriller for the Padres. But I think the larger story in this is that these late game escapes are starting to look less like luck and more like a result of a team finally playing complete baseball. The Padres are now 13-4 over the last 17 games with 6 comeback wins during that stretch. The win also was the Padres' 33rd comeback victory of the season, their 18th win after trailing by at least 2 runs, and their 25th victory decided in the 7th inning or later. This was all put out in Kevin Acey's daily newsletter. Now, the argument that he had in the article was this isn't necessarily the same team that built a surprisingly good record early in the season through constant late comebacks, because back then you could see that the pitching staff was showing cracks. The stars were not hitting, and opponents were frequently making mistakes and giving the Padres an opportunity to get out of bad situations with victories. Now, it's a little bit different. Now it's because the offense is producing. The stars are producing. The rotation is actually giving them some length right now. The defense making huge plays, and the bullpen is closing out games. This is a different distinction between beginning season Padres and right now Padres. And this distinction could determine whether the Padres are actually a legitimate postseason threat or simply a team getting hot at the end of the season. I mean, the Padres are winning, but they're doing it differently now. 13 wins in 17 games, like I mentioned. They are hot not because of the other team. They are hot because they are playing good baseball. And we talked about that briefly, but earlier in the season, again, Padres could come back from huge deficits, but it felt unsustainable because of the pitching staff, because of the fact the stars were not starring, because it seemed like they were kind of lucking into it. The starting pitching wasn't giving them anything. The lineup wasn't consistently producing, and the team was relying on chaos. But now the offense is dramatically improved. We talked about it yesterday. Before the All-Star break, the Padres had the worst offense in almost every statistical category across the board. Since the All-Star break, they have almost the best offense in every offensive category across the board. We talked about it. I mean, I think there was only like 2 stats since the All-Star break in which the Padres were not the number 1 offense in all of Major League Baseball. If you look since July 1st, the Padres are still top 5 in every single statistical category from the offensive side. That's really remarkable how much they've... that is a dramatic improvement. They went from being the worst offense in baseball to being the best offense in baseball. When you talk about a turnaround for a team, like, well, they could do it if the stars start to star. I don't think anybody thought that the offense would just go from last to first. It would be like last to like, oh, maybe they could be top 10 and it will look a lot better. They went last to first. Casey Mize looked pretty good yesterday. He had a really good bounce back after his first outing against Arizona. And it's leading to the starting pitching giving this Padres team a little bit more length than they were at the beginning of the year. You're starting to solidify the rotation a little bit. You have Casey Mize as part of this rotation. We'll see what Robbie Ray does tomorrow. He's part of this rotation. Walker Buehler has done a pretty good job so far this year for the Padres. And now with the reemergence of Randy Vasquez, Michael King putting together some good outings here and there, and with the rise of Joe Musgrove potentially coming back, the starting rotation is starting to actually get to a point where you think, hey, you know what? This might be good enough not only to get to October, but make it through October. Starting pitching, giving them length. Offense dramatically improved. Merrill, Tatis, Machado, all producing at high levels. Now, Machado's cooled off a little bit, but Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr. have been 2 of the hottest hitters in all of Major League Baseball since the All-Star break. And that again continued last night with the Jackson Merrill home run that he hit. That was the eventual game winner in the 7th inning or whatever it was. The bullpen continues to remain a strength of shutting the door. This team is capitalizing on opponents' mistakes. This team is making defensive plays that change games. Jake Cronenworth talked about it in the postgame yesterday that, it just feels like a complete game start to finish. And that's what this team has been doing. You are finally watching the Padres become the team that everyone expected them to be. And when you talk about the offense completely changing, this is like the biggest development of this team right now. The offense spent much of the season ranked near the bottom in MLB in virtually every meaningful category, as we mentioned. And over the past 6 weeks, they're top 5 offense in most categories. 3 guys doing it: Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. And Jackson Merrill specifically has been the obvious headline. Since July 19th, Jackson Merrill is hitting 376 with 1146 OPS. MLB leading 9 home runs. MLB's highest OPS during that stretch, 3 consecutive games with a home run, and 2 of those 9 homers gave San Diego the lead for good, while 2 others tied games. That's not just Merrill is hitting. That is like Merrill is impacting games right now and showing just how valuable he is to this franchise. And one of the unsung heroes of the entire year, and I think a lot of people have paid attention to him just because of the fact that he is a Aztec for life and because he was here before in San Diego doing a good job in 2020 before he was traded away. I mean, what can you say about Ty France? He hit the other Padres home run yesterday. He's now hitting 291 with an 872 OPS in 329 plate appearances. Among first basemen with at least 300 plate appearances, France is one of only 2 players hitting at least 290 while also carrying an OPS of 850 or better. This is a guy that they brought in on a minor league deal to potentially have a chance to make an impact as a bench piece or be on this team and contribute in different ways. He has done a lot more than just kind of contribute and spot start. I mean, he has been your everyday first baseman in such a huge way. Ty France definitely deserves attention. We're just getting started here on the show. We're going to be here until 2 o'clock. Gwen and Chris. We're going to talk more Padres baseball. We're going to dive into an Aztec report, a couple of transfers that you should keep an eye on that will impact San Diego State football. We got some news out of college football and the potential expansion of the playoff. We're going to talk about the NFL later on in the show also, but we're going to be locked into Padres baseball over the next 2 hours, especially. And when we come back, we're going to go back into the dive of Jackson Merrill, because Jackson Merrill just might be the most important player on this Padres team moving forward this season. We'll explain that next on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number sports station, 97 through the Fan.
Bet tonight.
Not a bad idea.
That I'll have more hits than you.
Let's do it right now.
How much you want to bet?
We'll do $5.
Oh God!
Oh, it hits ball in the air. Oh, sick, dude. 10:18 on a Tuesday. Padres get a victory last night over the Milwaukee Brewers, 3-2. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3. The Fan. Kyle's learning all the buttons for StreamYard back there.
Yes, I am.
He's trying to figure it out. It's okay. Got a lot of moving parts on this show. You know, sometimes Frank just, he's an octopus back there. He's got his tentacles
and I'm
everywhere.
one hand down a little bit.
Oh yeah, what happened to you?
Sprained my wrist.
What'd you do?
I slipped out of the shower.
Oh no!
My dog got into trash, so had to.
So you were in the shower.
Yeah,
and
no
you
time to dry
heard
off.
That your dog was in the trash?
Well, it was more like I opened the door and I saw, like, from across the room, I beamed my eyes right at him, and he's chewing on something.
And you were still in the shower?
Yes, still in the shower.
And so you stepped out of the shower.
No time to dry.
And you slipped.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Can't make fun of people who slip out of the shower.
No, you can't. Now you're that old guy that slipped in the shower.
Know.
You should
get
get
a life alert.
You're going to have to put the little bars on the side, the safety bars to get you in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the little mat down.
Bad. It's terrible.
Oh, man, that is terrible. That is an injury, Kyle, that like people and teams put on their what happened to so-and-so in the NFL? Well, he slipped in the shower. Oh, yeah, okay, sure. But you know what? It happens.
Yeah, last year, Michael King's like, oh, I slept wrong, So things like that.
Same type of athlete. It happens to athletes, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I remember there was one, I think it was a Charger one time. I remember a San Diego Charger, he got hurt trying to take his luggage off the top rack or something like that. His luggage hurt him somehow, and nobody thought it was real, but I guess it was real.
Tricky in the chat says I have to find a better story. I'm an honest guy. I'm just gonna give it to you straight.
You know what? I'll tell you this. My buddy Nicky, he couldn't play OTL this year because he got hurt. He hurt his hand before over the line.
Uh-huh.
I thought he was being a little soft about it, but that's neither here nor there. And I was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Well, I was skateboarding." I'm like, "Excuse me? You're 30 years old now, dude. And it's probably time to stop trying to be Tony Hawk and start playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater again on video games. The time has come. It's probably not. Probably can't be doing that stuff anymore at this age. Now, that's not. I said that, and my friend, she was like, "Yeah, but Tony Hawk still skates." I'm like, "Yeah, but Nicky is not Tony Hawk. There's a drastic difference here between some amateur 29-year-old and one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. There's slight difference." Yeah, Johnny's calling you out. The classic sprain my wrist in the shower story. Nice, buddy. Nice.
Hey,
It
that's
happens.
what happened.
It happens. We got Little League Baseball on today. As everybody tries to clinch their path to Williamsport. I do know that I'm pretty sure Sweetwater Valley plays today in the West region. They are 2 wins away potentially from going to Williamsport, if I'm not mistaken. So they will play today, Sweetwater Valley against Hawaii. That game will be at 6:30 on ESPN. So you can flip back and forth between the Padres and the Little League World Series. You can listen to Jesse and Tony and watch the Little League World Series West Regional if you want. Support our local team here in town, Sweetwater Valley. Arizona has eliminated Northern California 7-5. So the loser of the Sweetwater Valley Hawaii game will play Arizona on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. The winner of tonight's game between SoCal, Sweetwater Valley, and Hawaii will be in the championship game on Friday. And it sounds like Sweetwater Valley's number 1 pitcher is scheduled to pitch on Friday. And he throws 75 miles an hour from 46 feet, which looks like over 100 to a Little League kid based on the distance. So that's a good spot to be in if you're SoCal and you're Sweetwater Valley. So we'll see what happens with that Little League. I did see this before we dive into the Jackson Merrill. Did you see the Little League team in the Southwest region from Tulsa, Oklahoma that got suspended? They got disqualified for an ineligible player.
What? No.
And so they took it to court on a restraining order towards Little League, and the court sided with the temporary restraining order against the Little League, but then Little League powers that be were like, we don't really care. And so, like, you can go and show up to the field to play this championship game you're not eligible for, but the team that you're playing against is already on their way to Williamsport, and we're backing them the whole way.
I didn't know sports court was like an actual thing.
Yeah, I don't think they wear the wigs like Gwen and Christo, but I just thought that was like ridiculous. Adults continuing to ruin youth sports on a whole different level.
It's terrible.
Some crazy reason. I've seen some rumors about why the kid was ineligible to play. And if those reasons are true, it's kind of gross that was like what they decided to do to make the kid eligible. And this is all for like, I mean, the adults just let the kids play and stop trying to cheat all the time. But that being said, every one of these teams in the League World Series that you'll see when they make it to Williamsport have a special story. There's a special rule. There's a special player on every one of these teams. There's always like just outside the boundary, or like, oh, well, he's 14, but he's Little League age 13 and all this other stuff. Oh, it's a travel ball team that's played with each other since they were 5, and they don't actually play Little League until this year. And then they showed up and they put them on the exact same team just to try to go to Williamsport. So that's neither here nor there. So they got some regional games that are on ESPN right now and throughout. But tonight will be Sweetwater Valley's chance to try to punch their ticket into the championship game in the West region. They are 2 games away, 2 wins away from going to Williamsport. Let's dive into Jackson Merrill. And the question that we asked going to break is Jackson Merrill now the most important player on the Padres? I mean, I think he might be for a couple of different reasons, but let's start looking at what Jackson Merrill has done. Merrill's current stretch is eerily similar to what he did after the All-Star break in 2024. 2024 was another year in which I thought when the Padres played game 100 and they got smoked by Cleveland, I thought the team was done. I'm like, this team's cooked. Like, there's no way. They played 500 ball for most of the year. They've played 500 ball through 100 games. They got 62 left. And then all of a sudden they went on a tear. And by mid-August to early September, we all thought here in San Diego that the Padres were talented. I mean, this team could go win a World Series in 2024, surprisingly. And a big reason for that was the fact that Jackson Merrill went on an incredible stretch. In 2024, after going 0 for 4 in his first game after the break, which, by the way, was that game 100 against Cleveland, Merrill hit .320 with a .962 OPS and 12 home runs in his final 60 games. 4 of those homers tied games in the 8th or 9th inning, and another was a walk-off. And now he's kind of doing the same thing. Since July 19th, which is relatively right after the All-Star break, he's hitting .376 with an 1146 OPS. MLB leading 9 home runs. Major League Baseball's highest OPS during that stretch. 3 consecutive games with a home run. 2 of those 9 homers gave San Diego the lead for good, while 2 others tied games. I don't know. Am I on repeat, Kyle? That sounded like almost the exact same thing I just said.
Pretty much. What I like is he looks more like, Jackson Merrill, vintage Jackson Merrill. The home runs at the end of the game when you really need it.
He has been. And that's the player that you expected in 2024. That was the vintage Jackson Merrill that you saw as he was a rookie. Now, the interesting lineup wrinkle, of course, he's batting 5th. And as Kevin Acey points out in his daily newsletter, and I was an advocate for this back in 2024, Merrill has historically hit better lower in the order than he did higher in the order. And he hit 5th or 6th for virtually the entire second half of 2024. He was the big impact player that helped the Padres go on that big run that they needed to make the playoffs in 2024, go deep into the playoffs in 2024. So now the question becomes, is Jackson Merrill the Padres' most important offensive player right now? I don't necessarily think he's their best player, but I think he's their most important player because of the fact that he's hitting .376 with an 1146 OPS and a 9 home runs since July 19th. He's producing in big moments. The Padres were built around Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, but if Merrill is the guy carrying the offense into September, he could become the player who determines how far this team goes in the postseason, especially if he's batting 5th. and batting near the middle to bottom of the order. I think he sets this up for a good run. I don't think he is the best player on the team. I definitely think he is the most important player right now. And we saw this in 2024, and we're starting to see it again in 2026. And maybe that might be the key to success for the San Diego Padres. Is the Padres' comeback ability also a key to success, or is it a warning sign? When we come back, we'll talk about whether or not the comeback wins are important, and we'll also talk about how they're winning things via the little things. Braden Surprenant Show, Static German Sports Station 97 through the Fan. right. 10:35 on a Tuesday. I have Kyle jumping through a lot of hoops right now, so I think we should be good. Audio's back there. So now you got to put me in the program, and then put everything else to record to send it to StreamYard. Yada 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 yada. The technicalities. You know what? You're lucky you got a host that could do it all. All
Jack
the
of all
technical
trades.
stuff. That's right. We had to get some other recordings done during the break, and we knocked it out. Great job, Kyle. Appreciate the help.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk more about. I want to talk more about Merrill madness, if you will. There was a lot of what Jackson Merrill has done that leads to him being the most important player moving forward. And in his rookie year, I remember, and I was talking to some people in baseball, and everybody wanted to move Jackson Merrill up in the order. This is why I'm not a believer in just moving guys up in the order because they're hot. I think you could do it for a little bit, but I think you got to have there's certain guys that are built for the top of the order and certain guys that are built for the middle and certain guys that are built for the bottom. And in a rookie season, I don't care how good Jackson Merrill was going to play, he was better off being in the middle of the bottom part of the order and let him be him. That's very important. And so right now he's in the middle of the order, which I think is a great swing guy. I think it really lengthens the lineup. I think it really makes it difficult for pitchers to navigate. And I think the way that Jackson Merrill is playing, this is the type of player in the core part of your order that gets you through the playoffs. It's a guy like Jackson Merrill doing it in the 5 spot. We know Fernando's your most dynamic player. He's your best player on this team. He could do it all. Defensively, running the bases. Yeah, sure. He makes some mental mistakes every once in a while on the bases. He gets a little bit too aggressive. Some people call it reckless. He's your best player. But a couple of reasons why Jackson Merrill is your most important player. He's one of those young, controllable players. Yes, he had got a contract extension, but that contract, in my opinion, is very club friendly. These are the young guys. Him and Fernando are the young guys that carry a team that has veteran players on big contracts. And Jackson Merrill's turnaround this season has gone from encouraging to potentially season-defining, I think, for the Padres. The 23-year-old center fielder spent nearly 2/3 of the season struggling badly enough that his 9-year, $135 million contract all started to look questionable. But instead of making some dramatic mechanical overhaul, Merrill went back and watched video of himself as a teenager, and his conclusion was essentially, stop trying to be somebody else, go back to being Jackson Merrill. I mentioned this phrase yesterday. USD says it all the time with their baseball team because their head coach, Brock Ungrich, played for the man that used to say it in Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn had a saying when he was a coach at San Diego State, and who knows if he was saying it before, as maybe a dad to Tony Jr. or as a player himself to other players. He had the saying of know who you is. And Jackson Merrill went back and rediscovered who he is and who he was. It wasn't a mechanical change. It was, I got to know who I am. And the results have been extraordinary. We mentioned what he's been doing since July 19th. 376 batting average, 1146 OPS, 9 home runs, most home runs in Major League Baseball during that span. Home run in 3 consecutive games. 2 of his recent homers tied games. 2 gave the Padres the lead for good. He's just 1 home run away, by the way, from a 2020 season, which almost felt impossible at the beginning of the year with the way he was playing. I mean, if he has a continued surge, 30-30 is not out of reach. I mean, 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases, definitely in play. A 25-25 season would also be unprecedented for the Padres center fielder. I mean, this is something that is a stretch for him that looks very much like 2024 when, again, as we talked about, he hit 320 with a 962 OPS in his final 60 games. The biggest thing about this, though, is this is not like Jackson Merrill was playing very well all year like he was his rookie season and then just got hot. He was struggling at the beginning of the season. And the natural response from a lot of guys, especially young players, and we've seen it out of a lot of the older players, is I got to fix something. I got to change my mechanics. I got to change the setup. I got to change my approach. I got to watch more video. I got to try something different. I can't possibly continue to do the same thing and have different results. Jackson Merrill did the opposite of that. He went back, watched himself as a teenager, and decided, I'm going back to that. And then he homered twice the next day against Kansas City. Fascinating how that worked. Because Jackson Merrill wasn't necessarily missing the talent. We all know how talented he is. He was maybe overthinking. And he was one of baseball's more swing-happy hitters who had previously been plagued by overthinking. And his current approach now, be aggressive. Don't be afraid to swing and miss. Take walks when they're there. And that's a major difference from trying to manufacture the perfect at-bat, which can be difficult for a lot of young players. And this is why Jackson Merrill's turnaround matters so much. They don't need, the Padres don't, they don't need Jackson Merrill to hit. They need Jackson Merrill. They thought they were paying $135 million to become, and the timing of this is important. San Diego is entered the All-Star break with the worst offense in baseball, and since then, the team has hit 24% better than league average, according to Fangraphs. And the turnaround isn't just Ty France and maybe Freddie Fermin, who's been on a little bit of a tear, and Luis Camposano coming back from injury. This is coming from Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado. Those are the three players the Padres built their lineup around. And Merrill might be the most fascinating of the three because of the fact his turnaround has been so dramatic. Think about what happens when Merrill is dangerous to this team. If Merrill is hitting fifth and crushing baseballs, Tatis becomes harder to pitch around. Machado becomes harder to pitch around because he's got better protection. Merrill isn't carrying the lineup, but he's creating pressure within it. You add Ty France, who has had a great season. You add the fact that the catching position for the Padres is starting to produce at a very high level. You're going to get better opportunities because pitchers can't simply navigate around the top threats anymore like they were at the beginning of the season. There's the potential ripple effect. It's lengthening the lineup. So the Padres don't need Merrill to hit 376 for the rest of the season. They just need him to remain dangerous in the box. Even a regression from 376, which is a high number to hit at, doesn't necessarily mean that the turnaround is fake. Because if he becomes the version of himself that can consistently produce power, get on base, and impact games, that's transformational for this roster. We mentioned that Jackson Merrill is one home run away from 2020. And with enough time remaining, he could be 30-30. That's remarkable. But there's another historical benchmark that perhaps is even more interesting. No Padres center fielder. I can't believe this. Dennis Lin had this in an article today. I cannot believe this. No Padres center fielder has ever had a 25-25 season. No Padres center fielder has ever hit 25 home runs and has stolen 25 bags. That gives Merrill a chance to create some franchise history, even if he doesn't get all the way to 30-30. And remember, he's doing this after a season that had people questioning whether his massive contract extension was justified. He's doing this after this season. People were asking that question at the beginning of the season. What an enormous swing in perception for a 23-year-old center fielder. When Merrill was struggling, people weren't just asking, like, what's wrong with Jackson Merrill? They were asking, did the Padres give him too much money too soon? Were they betting on a guy that just had one good year as a rookie and as the league has adjusted to him is not going to be the same player? Is it a situation where, you see that fall off in production? One of those, rookie of the year candidates or rookie of the year winners that was just a one-hit wonder. But now that conversation looks a lot different. And the important distinction, of course, is the Padres weren't wrong to believe in Merrill because of what happened this season. They were betting on the player they believed he could become. And now they're seeing the flashes of that player again. And the more interesting question is, does this stretch remind you of why the Padres gave him the contract in the first place? And I think the answer is yes. I absolutely think the answer is yes. I mean, we've said this multiple times about these big contracts. You pay for the good years, but you also pay for the bad years. And not every year is going to be perfect. Not every year is going to be an all-star type season. There's going to be some up and down. Now, Hall of Famers are having more great years than not. But Jackson Merrill is only in year 3, and you have no idea what his career is going to be. But I tell you what, he's probably going to be one of the better players in Major League Baseball, and I think he has proven that. So you talk about the psychology of this young star. I mean, Craig Stammen offered some insightful description of what Merrill was going through. And Craig Stammen, as a manager and a former player that wasn't a player that long ago, essentially, was Merrill doubting himself, or was he simply working through a funk? And that's like a tough question for any young player, especially when you're 23 years old. You're expected to be a main reason why a franchise wins. You're coming off of a breakout season in 2024 and an injury-plagued season in 2025. You have that huge contract that, regardless of what maybe some people think, there's a lot of players that want to live up to the contract they sign and prove to people why they signed it in the first place. Playing every day, trying to live up to expectations. Eventually, that question starts to linger in the back of your head. Am I still good? And Merrill's solution was almost comically simple. I'm going back to being my high school self. And now he's playing with the freedom, and now he's playing with that confidence that he had in 2024. And don't forget, I mean, we've mentioned this multiple times. I'm going to say it again. Don't forget what happened 2 years ago. After the 2024 All-Star break, 320 average, 962 OPS, 12 home runs in 60 games. He produced in enormous moments, and 4 of those homers tied games in the 8th or 9th. 1 was a walk-off. And now you look at 2026, 376 average, 1146 OPS since July 19th, 9 home runs, Major League Baseball's most home runs during that span. And again, the homers are coming in meaningful moments. That makes this more than just a hot week. I mean, this is a pattern developing for Jackson Merrill being one of the cornerstone pieces of this team. So, if Jackson Merrill is really back to being the guy that you expect him to be, how high is this Padres ceiling? Because with that, the Padres already have Fernando. They already have Manny Machado. They got Mason Miller from a pitching side. They have a healthier and better rotation. They have a dramatically improved offense. And now potentially the version of Jackson Merrill, who looked like one of baseball's next great stars, is starting to show up again. That's a different team than what the team we were talking about the last couple of months and really the month of May and June. This is a different baseball team. This is a team that is hitting at a high clip. This is the team that has shown now why they have been the number one offense in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break. And maybe it's just Jackson Merrill, but it also could be because of, everybody else contributing. I just think Jackson Merrill has been a big reason for why this team has been so good, and I think it's why he is the most valuable piece going into the postseason because of the fact of where he's at in the lineup and what he's been able to do. It drastically changes the outlook, I think. The other thing, too, about this team, and we teased it going to break, is talking about how they've been able to come back this year. They have 33 comeback wins. They have 18 wins after trailing by at least 2 runs. They have 25 games decided in the 7th inning or later, which is really incredible. But a lot of people like on the fence of whether or not this is good or whether or not this is not good. To me, I view the comeback as long as it's not something you have to do over and over and over again. I think having the experience of getting comeback wins and no lead being safe, and I know for a long period of time, it seemed like 1-run lead for other teams was going to be insurmountable. But this team has proven throughout the course of the entire year that they can come back and win any game. And I think getting that opportunity in the regular season helps you and benefits you in the postseason. Because I think there is a time and a place to celebrate comebacks, and there's a time and a place where you should be a little bit concerned about them. I think at the beginning of the season, when they were relying on this magical comeback in the 8th and 9th inning, when the pitching staff wasn't doing very well, and when the bullpen was kind of like holding everything together, and when the offense wasn't hitting, it was just kind of we got a couple of hits late in the game. I think that's a cause for concern. But right now, the way the Padres are doing it, I think this benefits them in October of being able to win games when they're down, being able to come back and having that confidence of, we've been here before. We know how to handle business. No lead is safe. We're not going to panic and start putting together bad at-bats. And I think the biggest difference right now is the fact that they are playing more complete baseball. And so now these comeback wins, I think, are even more important for the Padres moving forward. I also think it's a little bit of the unsung heroes, and we talked about Ty France earlier, but I mean, what a pickup Ty France has been for this ball club. And I know I get it all the time. I get a lot of people that say, we got to extend Ty France. We got to keep him part of this team. Like, he's so great here. I think that's a more of a in-depth question and answer session for the offseason, and we'll see what happens during this offseason with labor negotiations and everything like that. But, you know, Ty France, I think you caught lightning in a bottle with how he's been playing. This has been a great season for Ty France. He's coming off of a Gold Glove year a year ago defensively. He's really done it offensively here in San Diego, which is great to see. And, you know, that is a guy that helps his team. That's another hit for A.J. Preller during the offseason to bring in a guy like Ty France. I mean, I thought Ty France was going to be a spot start guy. Maybe he can help. Maybe he can help with his bat a little bit. But he's hitting .291 with an .872 OPS in 329 plate appearances. Among first basemen at least 300 plate appearances, France is one of only two players hitting at least .290 while also carrying an OPS of .850 or better. I mean, that's a legitimate offensive contributor that you got on a minor league deal. I think you got to be wary, though, a little bit about like giving an extension to players like Ty France. I mean, I think he's having a good year. I think the Padres, with how they have given out contracts in the past, I think you have to be weary about long-term contracts. I really do. Like, Ty France is 32 years old. You want to pay him until he's 35? I mean, he's going to be making a decent amount of money. He's going to somebody's going to pay him. Ty France production for $1.35 million is great. I don't necessarily know how much more of that you can continue to pay. Right? I mean, they had Donovan Solano and they had David Peralta that year in 2024. Big impact bats. Didn't cost a lot of money. You got to let those guys go sometimes. So I think it's going to be an interesting decision when it comes to Ty France during the offseason. I think we have a little bit extra ties to Ty because of the fact he's an Aztec for life. And he played here for at San Diego State for Tony Gwynn. I think that's all fun and dandy. And the Padres drafted him and had a good year in 2020 before he was traded. There's no such thing as a hometown discount, hardly ever. I don't really see Ty doing that if he has an opportunity to actually make money and solidify himself as a big leaguer. I think it's going to be hard to try to sign him to, what he believes he is worth. And sometimes you got to say thanks for the memories at the end of the year. You have to. I said the same thing about Gary Sanchez, the same thing about Kyle Higashioka. I know those guys are catchers, but sometimes you just got to say thanks for the memories. But I think that's more of an off-season question. This is the time to celebrate what Ty France has done as a big leaguer. And it's so fun to watch him and show off what his ability and what he's able to do. He's helped this organization so much over the course of the year. He's helped his team win. He's having a great season. Love watching Ty France go out there and compete. And he was a big reason why they won yesterday. He's been a big reason why he has won so many different times, why the Padres have won so many times this year. But that doesn't mean you have to keep him. And I think every year is like that. And, I know the Padres have signed some guys to extensions. And after a couple of years, fans go like, why did we give this guy an extension? Well, you know what? I mean, everybody wanted to give a lot of these players extensions when it happened. Sometimes you got to say thanks for the memories. And he might be one of those candidates. And that's not saying he didn't play well here. But sometimes it's like, hey, go out and get your money and go reap the benefits of the year that you had. Unfortunately for us, it's not going to be here, potentially. So we'll see what happens with Ty France. The unsung heroes and the little things. We talked about some of the unsung heroes. There was a couple more last night, and it was a lot doing with how the Padres have used the little things to win. We're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll get you an update on what Joe Musgrove said yesterday and what's the latest with Nick Pivetta, all in the next hour.
Hey, it's Ben and Woods. We love San Diego, and this isn't just a sleepy tourist destination anymore. We are a baseball town, and that means year-round baseball talk.
Every weekday morning, join us from 6 to 10 a.m. on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. This is Ben Higgins, and I'm with Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. Jeff, why should people care
guest join us on the STCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. He's Kyle Ovenshire.
Bet I am.
He's filling in for Frank Marchese today. A little under the weather, Frank, so hopefully he feels a lot better. He sounded like it yesterday. I bet, man. I can't even do it. His voice, it was just, oh, man, he was dying. By the final segment, dude, he was like this in the chair.
Just like, please let me go home.
We usually do those like commercial break videos on Mondays.
Okay.
I couldn't do them anyway yesterday because of the fact that I had football practice like immediately after the show. And he was like, I can't do them. I can't do it. Guy was really.
He's gone through it.
He was going through it for sure. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. If you want to join the show today, if you haven't done so already, give us a like on the YouTube page. It really helps us out. If you like what you see on YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube page at B_SURP, at BSURP. We got some cool shirts too.
Do you get that if you get a like?
You get a shirt?
Yeah.
You gotta buy the shirt.
Oh.
We have a merch store, though. It's in the YouTube comments below. If you take a look in the description below, there's a thing that says merch. And you can click the link, and you can see all the shirts that we have. They flash on the Braden Surprenant Show page on YouTube
Nice.
as we go. So, order it online. I will ship it to you. I just had another friend order one online. Got it to him in about a day via the shipping. It was great. It's such a comfortable shirt. I get compliments on how comfortable it is all the time. So it's not like it. This is not a cotton t-shirt that is eventually going to turn into a rag that you clean with. This is a comfortable shirt. Comfortable shirt.
Do we just got like brown and gold colorway?
I got brown and gold. We had a little bit of a misprint, so I got blue and gold. Looks like UCSD. I got blue and orange.
Ooh,
Blue and orange is nice.
that does sound nice.
Blue and orange is nice. And I also, you know what? A couple of people enjoyed I got a 1980s looking brown and orange.
Oh,
That's
that
on
would
there
go
as
with my
well.
hat.
Yeah, it'd be great. Absolutely. And I also have one that's got the graphic on the back. You know, this guy. So there's a white cotton one. It's got that guy on the back. It's kind of looks like one of those In-N-Out shirts, if you will. You could go check it out on Shopify. Braden Surprenant Show store. It's also in the description below. There's a link. Bang. Go check it out. And the people that have gotten a shirt and have bought a shirt understand that they are some of the most comfortable shirts out there. Comfortable shirts. Anyway, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We're going to get to your phone calls in just a little bit. Tricky T sleeps in his. Very relaxing. They're so soft. It's great. So soft. Anyway. Fridge Watcher likes the mocha and orange one. It's kind of the brown is it's officially called mocha on the shirt color. Try to be fancy,
We like that.
And since the blue and gold one kind of looked like UCSD, I called it La Jolla Gold. So there you go. Where's my UCSD fans out there? We got shirts for you. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I talked about the little things. We're going to get into that right now. I also want to mention, Dennis Lin had an article that just came out about the new ownership and when they could potentially take over. We're going to talk about that when we come back on the other side. But I do want to get to the phone calls, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to Frank and El Cajon. Frank, what's going on?
Good morning, Braden. I like your show, and I really like you guys' insight about sports. I got a question and a quick comment. After the season, I think the labor agreement is going to go into more intense negotiations, and our team's going to hold off signing free agents until a deal is signed to see if there is or isn't going to be a salary cap. And also, the Dodgers aren't going to care about a salary cap. I think they'll try and gobble up more home immediately. And I think that we should try and extend him now before the season's over. wanted your thoughts on that. Thanks a lot, Braden. Good job.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you for the kind words. I will say this about the labor negotiations. We've gone through this not too long ago. I think you're going to get some players that sign early to just make sure they're locked into a contract and not have to sweat out signing super late, depending on what the situation might be during the lockout. I think so. A couple of years ago, I think it was like Corey Seager was one of those guys. I think it might have been Marcus Semien too with the Texas Rangers. I mean, there was a handful of players that signed very quickly because there's got to be a little bit of time in between. Like the labor negotiations or the contract, or should I say, start like December 1st. You can sign a free agent deal 5 days after the conclusion of the World Series, depending when that ends. Game 7 of the World Series this year is Halloween if it makes it that far. And so 5 days after Halloween, what is that, November 5th or whatever, that's the first day that free agents can sign. So you're going to get about probably a month or just under a month minimum to negotiate contracts for free agency for players that might want to sign before they go to a lockout, if they in fact go to a lockout. I could see, in terms of like whether or not you want to sign some of those deals, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that need to happen with the labor negotiations, and I think a lot of people don't know what's going to happen with the labor negotiations in terms of a couple of things. One being, is there going to be a salary cap or a salary floor? Number two, if there is a salary cap or salary floor, how are they going to grandfather in the current rosters? These are all little things that a lot of it gives uncertainty not only to players but also organizations. So I bet there's a handful of players that sign early. I don't think there's a guarantee that a lot of players will sign early. But I think it's going to look a lot like the last time we had these labor negotiations. And I wouldn't be surprised if a big name or two sign early just to be, it might be their only chance to get a big contract if the salary cap comes in, especially if they're going to grandfather in some of these deals. I mean, that could be a big portion of this. So interesting topic. I'm sure we'll have a lot of time to talk about that during the offseason. We have a couple of minutes here, and I do want to get into like some of the little things. And this is the difference between the Padres now and what the Padres are doing at the beginning of the year. I mean, Monday's game wasn't won only on Jackson Merrill's home run. There was a lot of different things that the Padres did yesterday that are little things that should be talked about. Last night's game was won by Freddie Fermin. Freddie Fermin anticipating the stolen base attempt by Brandon Lockridge in the ninth inning. And then him throwing out Brandon Lockridge in the ninth inning. Sungmoon Song keeping his toe on the bag early in the game. That ended up getting reviewed and overturned and in the favor of the San Diego Padres, which could have been a bigger inning against Casey Mize. The replay catching the difference. And speaking of Casey Mize, him giving you 6 innings yesterday. Good bounce back out of Casey Mize yesterday after his first outing did not go very well when he had 11 days off in between, which again, I don't really blame the pitchers like that. Tarek Skubal did okay in his first start with the Dodgers, but outside of him, who did okay, most of the starting pitchers that moved during the trade deadline did not have very good starts in their first start with their new team. So Casey Mize giving you 6 innings, won you the game yesterday. Bullpen finishing the game, won you the game yesterday. And it finally looks like over the course of the last couple of wins and over the last couple of weeks, this Padres team finally looks like a complete baseball team. And it's the first signs of seeing this team look like a complete baseball team that you've seen all year. And there's a difference between simply having talented players, which we saw the Padres have, and actually executing during games. Like, talent wins games, but execution wins playoff games. And Monday was an excellent example of talented players executing in big spots. I mean, Freddie Fermin made one of the biggest plays of the game last night. And this is exactly the type of play that gets overlooked when the box score says Padres 3-2. In the ninth inning, Brandon Lockridge was on first with 2 outs. Freddie Fermin just went out to the mound to talk to Mason Miller. And in the report from yesterday's game and the postgame, Fermin told Miller on that mound visit, he's fast, talking about Brandon Lockridge, he's going to try to run. Lockridge took off on a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. Fermin popped out of his crouch, caught the ball, threw a strike to Sun Moon Song, who applied the tag, ended the ball game. And Fermin actually threw out a couple of runners stealing on Monday. And he now leads Major League Baseball with 17 caught stealings. And he's also, by the way, hitting a 7-game hitting streak for Freddie Fermin, 14 consecutive starts with a hit, 362 average during that 14-start streak, a 907 OPS during that stretch. That's a ridiculously valuable backup secondary catcher. I mean, he's playing his way to potentially be the starter again with Luis Camposano, although it seems like they're kind of split in time. But he's suddenly impacting games offensively and defensively. That's huge. That's huge for the Padres. I mean, Freddie Fermin has had a rough year, and I think a lot of it, we talked about it yesterday. Since he had his time off and he came back, he's been on a tear. And the organization had felt that Freddie Fermin was not doing very well because of the fact that he had taken so many hits behind the dish. You know, he had that concussion after that ball hit him in the head when he was catching warm-ups from Yuki Matsui in Washington. Multiple times he has gone on the injured list with a little ding here, a little ding there. He finally got some extended time off. And since coming back, he has been everything you've wanted and more. And I know the overall season is not going to be great in terms of his overall stats, but if he's going to be on a tear in the second half of the season, that's the time you want this guy swinging the best bat. This is the time you want him throwing guys out on the bases. So it's a lot of little things and contributions. We talked about Ty France in the last segment. Freddie Fermin's getting the job done. Ty France is getting the job done. They're getting contributions from everybody across the board. And that's good news. The other good news is we might be finally coming to a close on this new ownership conversation. When we come back, the Padres could officially have new controlling owners as soon as next week. We'll get you the update that Dennis Lin reported on a couple of minutes ago when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show, Static Urban Sports Station 97 through the Fan. 11:18 on a Tuesday. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. It's part of our baseball coverage right now. Talking a lot of Padres baseball, a lot of baseball in general. Our baseball coverage on 97 through the Fan is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. All right, some news that just went down. Dennis Lynn reporting on this not too long ago, if I can find it, 44 minutes ago, about the update on the new ownership here in San Diego. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this potential update. Padres could officially have new controlling owners as soon as next week, with MLB owners scheduled to vote Monday on the proposed transfer of ownership to Jose Feliciano and Kwanzaa Jones. The biggest takeaway, no longer a hypothetical ownership change. The transaction has moved through the documentation phase and is now headed towards the final MLB approval vote. So MLB owners vote Monday. The vote will take place via a conference call. The sale requires approval of 22 of Major League Baseball's 29 other owners. And if approved, the transaction could become official shortly afterward. A $3.9 billion valuation for the San Diego Padres. Feliciano and Jones agreed in May to purchase the Padres at $3.9 billion. That would establish a new MLB record for franchise sale price for everybody that might have forgotten as this process has gone along over the summer. Previous record was $2.4 billion, sale of the Washington Nationals in 2006. Feliciano and Jones will control the franchise as they're purchasing a controlling stake of more than 40%. Feliciano is expected to become Major League Baseball's officially designated control person, but the expectation is that Feliciano and Jones will operate the franchise in tandem. It's not just them. They're not just buying 100% of the Padres. Several other individuals and investment groups will own smaller pieces. The youngest sons of former Lakers owner Dr. Jerry Buss are among the incoming minority investors, and some members of the late Peter Seidler family will retain shares. Feliciano's sports background, of course, for anybody that does not know, co-founder and managing partner of Clear Lake Capital. He is already involved in professional sports as the co-controlling owner of Chelsea FC, which he co-controls with the Los Angeles Dodgers owner, if you will. So this isn't somebody entering professional sports for the first time. This isn't somebody that needs professional sports to make money. This is somebody that already owns professional sports teams and has done very well for themselves in this life and in his company in Clear Lake Capital. Again, it's Feliciano and Kwanzaa Jones. They are co-owning the team, and it's separate from Clear Lake Capital, which is different than what their situation is in Chelsea FC. In terms of Kwanzaa Jones' background, founder and CEO of Supercharged, co-founded the Kwanzaa Jones and Jose Feliciano initiative with Feliciano. The organization has committed more than $500 million towards investments and philanthropic efforts, and the relationship with the Padres has already begun. Feliciano and Jones have reportedly remained in contact with Padres decision makers since reaching the purchase agreement. And that's important because they're not walking into this organization completely cold if and when the vote passes, which I think is inevitable at this time. Obviously, the timing's interesting because the Padres are currently hovering around the NL playoff race. Despite the ownership transition, the organization added approximately $6 million in payroll at the trade deadline. That raises the important question: how much influence did the incoming owners have on the trade deadline strategy? Sounds like they were in conversation, but it's nice to get this finally to a point where you know who the new owners are. And, well, I mean, you knew who they were, but like eventually we're dotting I's and crossing T's at this point. So it sounds like the vote will happen on Monday. We'll see what happens after the vote, but you're going to get they could be a new ownership group here with the Padres starting as early as next week, which is exciting, obviously, I think, for a lot of Padres fans. So pretty cool to see this process get taken care of. I still think as long as it is taken this summer, and of course, a lot of it is because of the fact that they had announced this already. At the beginning, like the Padres had announced that Jose Feliciano and Kwanzaa Jones were buying the team, and they still needed to go through a couple more phases. That usually happens first, and then they announce the new owners. It makes it seem like it's been a little bit longer than expected, but it's actually happened a lot faster than I thought it would. And they're moving along quickly. So that was the next stage in that. So that was some of the news that we got about 45 minutes ago. It doesn't really sound like anything's really going to change too much, but we'll see. I mean, I guess just time will tell with the new ownership group, but it's exciting, I think, for a lot of Padres fans, especially with, rumors that the new ownership group's going to spend some money on players. And that's exactly what you want in owners. Let's talk a little bit about the Nick Pivetta situation. And then when we come back, we're going to hear from Joe Musgrove, who was just glowing yesterday in the clubhouse with the Padres, because he knows he's on his way back soon, and hopefully he doesn't have any setbacks like he had in spring training, because you could tell Joe's excited to pitch again at the major league level. But the interesting thing about Nick Pivetta is no longer like, will he come back, or like, what's he doing on the rehab? It's now about what Kevin Acee wrote about yesterday in, what happens with his contract and the key date of August 22nd. The Padres are rapidly approaching a contractual deadline that could have major implications for Nick Pivetta's future in San Diego, and the key date is August 22nd. Pivetta's contract includes a provision stating that if he spends more than 130 consecutive days on the injured list, his $14 million player option for 2027 converts into a team option. And because Pivetta has been on the injured list since April 12th, it is now essentially certain he will cross that threshold without returning to the major league roster. That means the Padres will almost certainly control whether Pivetta is back in 2027. And considering his injury history and the uncertainty surrounding his return, there's a strong possibility San Diego declines the option. Timeline is brutal for Nick Pivetta. His season effectively stopped on April 12th when he left his four-start with the same elbow flexor tendon injury that caused him to miss time with Boston in 2024. He finally attempted a rehab start last Tuesday in Low A Lake Elsinore. It lasted just 14 pitches. Pivetta experienced what he called a sensation in his elbow and walked off before completing the first inning. He eventually felt well enough to throw another 20-ish pitches off a mound in the Storm's batting cage, but that's obviously a long way from being ready for major league competition. Since then, he's thrown 2 bullpen sessions at Petco Park. Neither session has been full speed. The sessions have essentially been tests to determine how hard he can throw, and no rehab start is currently scheduled for Nick Pivetta. He has only 12 days remaining before August 22nd's contractual threshold. That makes a return to San Diego's rotation by the deadline virtually impossible. Now, what does this mean financially? Pivetta signed a 4-year deal with San Diego before the 2025 season. He's scheduled to make $14 million in 2027, but that option is now expected to become the Padres' decision. His 2028 option will also become void if the Padres don't pick up the 2027 one. So the injury could potentially cost Nick Pivetta at least $32 million in future guaranteed option value. And that's before considering what he might have earned on the open market. If he signed like a 1-year deal with the Padres. I mean, remember last season, he finished 6th in the National League in Cy Young Award voting. He also had a 2.87 ERA, which was 6th best in the National League. Had he replicated anything close to that performance in 2026, there was a legitimate possibility he could have opted out of the contract and pursued a significantly larger deal. Instead, he has essentially gone from potentially controlling his future to having the Padres control it. And that's obviously a massive swing. But it's not necessarily the end of Nick Pivetta in San Diego. Obviously, like the Padres could still pick up his option. I mean, Padres getting control of the option doesn't necessarily mean Pivetta is gone. And according to the reporting by Kevin Acee yesterday in the Union Tribune, the relationship between Pivetta and the Padres remains very strong. That's significant because this doesn't appear to be a situation where the player and organization are fighting over the contract. Pivetta also isn't publicly focusing on August 22nd. His message has been consistently get healthy, get back to pitching, take it day by day. And that's understandable. But, from Pivetta's perspective, the contract implications are secondary to whether his elbow allows him to pitch again. And that's something interesting to discuss. When we come back, is it worth picking up the option for Nick Pivetta? We'll talk about that, but also we'll hear from Joe Musgrove, who feels really good, and it sounds like he has felt the best he has in the last couple of years. We'll hear from Joe when we come back as well. Braden, Surprenant Show, San Diego Sports Station 97 through the Fan. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. He's Kyle Obenshire. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show, setting Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. He's in for Frank today. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course.
One wrist and all.
It's working out just fine. It's working out just fine.
Added to your already busy schedule with Padres baseball. How many Padre games are you working this week?
I worked last night, and then I'm not here until the weekend. So Adam was like, hey, I know it's a quick turnaround. I was like, that doesn't really matter.
Well, they didn't ask you to do the morning show.
No,
you got the mid-morning show, which is a little bit better. You got to sleep in a little bit. It's a little different than like having to be here before 6 a.m.
Yeah, the sun was out, thankfully. So it was nice to. The one thing I didn't like, though, was the traffic getting here. I was like, I completely forgot about like that 8 a.m.
Correct
15 traffic.
We get out of here just in time, right before traffic builds. As long as you don't, mess around too much with the podcasting. If you get it quick, if you get it done quick, you won't have to worry about traffic.
Yeah,
what part of the county do you live in?
I'm in Bonita, so same as Frank, I think, right?
Yeah, you better get that podcasting done very quickly.
It's all right.
Yeah, there's certain times where, like, if I leave, the 15 traffic is either going to be stacked up north or not. So, usually, if I have to at this point in the year now, I'm never going home after work. I'm going straight to something else, which is usually Cathedral. So, we're gonna have. I usually by the time we leave here, I could get on the 15 to the 52805 north, and I can cruise up, and I can usually get to Cathedral by like the earliest I've gotten there is 219.
It's not bad.
If I leave like as soon as the music ends on the show, and I've already recorded the promo and done all that stuff during the show, I could get up there at like 219, like 220-ish. Today they're practicing at 1:30 because we had to move some things around for coaches, and they're like, oh, cool, like you could be there, right? No,
be there a little late.
As Frank mentioned last night, yeah, Frank was gonna speak on it for me. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna need you to do me at 1:30. Can you tune into the radio station, turn into 97.3 The Fan, and that will be the answer of why I am not there." Now Thursday is gonna be. I got to map out Thursday because we scrimmage on Thursday. It's our first scrimmage. Scrimmages are this week for high school football, and next week is week 0, first games.
Oh, nice.
I mean, high school football is already back. We have a bye the first week, so I'm not like I got a couple more weeks before I got to start worried about that. But like right now, we have excuse me, we have our scrimmage at Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, and I coach JV and varsity, and JV's at 4:30. And I don't get off until 2. So I don't know how this is going to work out. This is going to be a heck of a commute up there to Mater Dei's football field. I didn't know for scrimmaging at Santa Ana College, where they play their home games, or like actually at Mater Dei. So we will see if you could, if I can make it there in time. Maybe some radio magic on Thursday. I don't know yet. So we'll find out.
I think you got it.
I think so too. So I have to do that, and then in 2 weeks we play Orange Lutheran as a road team on JV. They're coming here on for varsity, but that's another day when I have to I think the game's at 5 that day, which is it gives me a little bit extra time to make it through in 5 traffic. So I'm going to be going up to Orange County like once a week for the next 3 weeks. We go up to Scout next week on the bye week. So. We'll see how that goes. I'm logging a lot of miles, Kyle. Logging a lot of miles.
Too bad you can't expense those.
Nope, not work related. No, and if I sent that to Cathedral, they'd be like, "What? Are you kidding me? Excuse me? Yeah, no, absolutely not." So we'll see how long it takes me to get up there. The best of the Braden Surprenant Show coming to you from 12 to 2 that Thursday.
I'm in my car.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Probably not. I mean, I can. I'm gonna check maps right now for Thursday. If I leave, like at 1:55, it says typically an hour and 25 minutes to 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm gonna have to take the 73. It says arrive around 4:15, 4:25. You know what? I think that's good enough.
Have a 1 hour Frank Marchese segment. Oh, I think you can do it.
I mean, I'd only need like the last segment done at that point.
Oh, there you go. I
Maybe
think
that
that's
was good.
solid.
And it could maybe record the sports thread and play it at the end. Don't want to out ourselves on the air here. Okay. Somebody saw. Did you see the play? Did you see what happened in the Red Sox Blue Jays game last night?
I heard Ben and Woods talking about it a little bit and how like the umps were kind of just not really sure what's going on, and then they were trying to explain it to everyone, and it just sounded like they didn't know what was happening.
So what happened last night? Red Sox Blue Jays. In the game, I forget what inning it was. But they had there was let me look up. I saw a video on this. I got to get the exact details of what actually happened. But it's the I think it's like it's the I forget what inning it is. It's the here it is. It's the top of the 7th inning, and there's one out, and there's runners on first and third for Toronto, or sorry, for the Red Sox. Okay, so runners are on first and third, and there's one out. The Red Sox hit a fly ball to center field, and the center fielder makes the catch for the second out. Seems like no problem. But the scoreboard at Rogers Center said that there were 2 outs. And so the center fielder for the Blue Jays thought there were already 2. He thought he made the third out. The runners on base thought it was the third out, but it was really only the second out. And so the runners still went, and the Blue Jays started to run off the field. But some of the Blue Jays actually knew that there was only one out. And so they were alerting the outfielder to throw it to first base where one of the runners was, and he was running. And so they throw it to first base, and that was that ended up being the final out. But here's where the rule comes in effect. It is the 4th out rule in Major League Baseball. And so what happened was, Kyle, I don't know if you caught any of that because I know you're talking to the phone with somebody that called in.
Yes.
So the runners are on first and third, one out in the top of the 7th. Red Sox fly out. In stadium scoreboard showed 2 outs. So half of the Blue Jays and both Red Sox on base thought it was the final out of the inning. But it wasn't. It was only the second out. And so they're running the bases like there was 2 outs. The guy that caught the ball in center field started to run in and the pitcher and the catcher all thought that that was the third out of the inning. But some of the Blue Jays knew that it wasn't. And so they had them throw the ball to first base to complete the final out. But the problem is there's a rule in Major League Baseball, and it's like the phantom 4th out rule. And what that rule states, and this is what they ruled last night, since the runner at third base, since it was a timing play or whatever, so since the runner from third base scored before they ended up getting the final out at first base, even though the guy didn't tag up, that run still counts
because it wasn't
for the Boston Red Sox. No, because the run scored before the final out was made.
Okay.
So the umpires are a little confused on that because of the the situation at hand. Because usually when that's the case, they're trying to get the guy out at third. But since the Blue Jays decided to get the guy out at first, because both of them were running, at that point it no longer matters how the guy got home. It doesn't matter if he tagged or not, because he came to score before they made the final out on the double play on the tag up. And so that way the Red Sox, it still ended the inning, but the Red Sox still got a run out of it, if that makes sense. It was like it was the final out. It was the 4th out rule, if you will.
I guess they got to put that in the rule book now.
Well, it's in the rule book. It's the fourth. It's like the fourth out rule.
I did not know that.
Which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, it is dumb. Like you should have a thing where it's like if you score, I don't want to say illegally, but I guess that would be an illegal way of scoring. Then it shouldn't count. But what the Blue Jays should have done is they should have appealed the tag up at third base instead of the one at first base.
Right.
And so that's something to learn now. If you're a team, like somebody didn't tag up, or a situation like last night obviously doesn't happen a lot. You want to get the guy out at third, not the guy out at first. So that's what happened yesterday in the Red Sox and the Blue Jays game.
Thankfully, it didn't bite them though, because
they won 2-1. Blue Jays still won 2-1. So that was the deal. But since it was the final out at first base, like it's not like they could appeal. They couldn't appeal back to third base. They already had the 3 outs. You wouldn't be appealing anything. The inning is over. So interesting, to say the least.
Absolutely.
833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. I do want to get to the Joe Musgrove situation. He seems to be playing a lot better. He seems to be feeling a lot better. We kind of teased this going to break. But Joe Musgrove met with the media yesterday before the game and had a lot of positive things to say about his outing in Reno for El Paso, to a point where he feels as good as he has felt in the last couple of years. Here's Joe Musgrove pregame yesterday.
I was happy I was able to get my 4 ups in. It's pretty efficient with pitches, a lot of strikes. I felt physically good with just about everything. Made some adjustments to pitches that hadn't been super consistent for me over the last 2 weeks. And it's mainly me changing an old grip that I used to have to something new to avoid, some discomfort. I feel like now I'm at the point where I'm getting back to my old grips and feeling more normal with it. So I'm seeing more consistent shapes with my breaking balls. A lot of breaking balls in the zone, a lot of fastballs in the zone. I just kind of struggled with the 2-strike expansion pitches. I feel like I had a lot of opportunities to get punch outs and get more swing and miss, but just wasn't really getting to the clean spots, another ball or 2 high or a ball or 2 underneath, and I maybe get swing and miss. But for where I'm at, having not faced hitters in a while, I feel really happy with where I'm at, and I feel like this is a normal progression to have an issue with getting the 2-strike pitches where I need to, as opposed to not finding the zone at all. So feel good, happy with the fact that I'm throwing strikes. Just got to work on expanding the zone a little bit.
And how did you feel today coming out of it?
Physically, I feel great. It's probably the best I've bounced back. I think the last couple outings, it's been the last inning that's felt my best. I've always kind of typically been like that, even when I'm healthy. Further I get into the game, the better rhythm I get into, the more my arm starts to loosen up and be more consistent. So I felt similar in my last 2 outings. Every time I'm getting pulled, I'm kind of anxious and wanting a little more, which is a good sign. But yeah, I feel like I'm just starting to get into that rhythm and find that groove again by the time I'm getting pulled out of game. So hopefully as the pitch count increases, I can find that, that flow a little bit earlier in the game and, get my pitch count up. Good. I think I was sitting around 94. I think I hit a couple 5s and 6s. So really consistent. I don't feel like a huge difference as the game goes with my stuff fading. Maybe just the fatigue of the up downs, having not experienced that in a little while. But by no means do I feel, beat down or, achy or painful in my last outing or my last innings of these outings. I feel like I'm getting stronger as the game's going and starting to find that rhythm. So all good signs.
Do you know what's next up for you?
I don't. It's going to be a rehab start. I don't know where. Don't exactly. I would assume 5 days from now, but it's always kind of reassess after we get through today and see how I feel. And I'm feeling great today. So see what's next for me.
That's the best news. He feels great. Some of the best he has felt in the last couple of years, which I think is good news. And, it's an interesting discussion about Joe Musgrove. And this definitely alters what this team could potentially do with him added as a rotation piece. It changes things for this team. And I think it changes things for this team, even if he's not vintage Joe Musgrove. He doesn't have to be no-hitter Joe Musgrove. Just him being a guy that could potentially give you 5 innings of gritty baseball, which Joe's going to do, makes this a lot better. And the more he does these rehab assignments and feels good, the more realistic it becomes that he becomes part of this rotation, and it helps this team. I said it before a couple of months ago. You can't guarantee that Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta is going to be part of this organization in terms of the rotation this year. You can't count on hope as an organization. And I think the Padres did a good job of adding some pieces at the deadline to assure that just in case there's another setback, just in case Joe can't go or Pivetta can't go, they have some sort of an insurance policy in terms of like their rotation, not actual insurance on medicals here. But now with Joe making it through 2 rehab assignments, feeling the best he has felt, working on the command of his pitches a little bit more, this alters this rotation even further and makes the ceiling for this team even higher. And he doesn't have to rush back. Not with Casey Mize pitching the way he did yesterday. Now with Robbie Ray coming in and hopefully picking up where Mize left off. We'll see him tomorrow. You get a nice little boost. We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit, but I do want to get back to your phone calls. 833-288-973, 833-288-973. Let's get out to Ron in La Mesa. Ron, what's going on, man?
Guys, how you doing today? Sorry to hear about Frank. I was kind of getting into that voice, Braden. Frank with a deep voice like that, kind of Brendan Vaccaro. I got a whole new aspect, like Frank after midnight. He play a little Barry White, talk to about the seedy part of sports. Hell, I stay awake for 15 minutes to listen to that. So anyway, I hope you're feeling better, Frank. Still got to give you the business. But, okay, Braden, I'm going to pat myself on the back here, buddy. After the All-Star break, we were talking about what this team needed to do to get better. And I said, Stammen needs to put together a lineup and stick with it. And he has done that pretty much, other than flip-flop and Crony and Renifro in the second spot. He has done it, and look at the outcome. Now, I don't know if that's it, but I think it makes all the team a little bit more comfortable. Even Freddie Fermin looks a lot more comfortable at the plate now. When he was batting last, it was always like, oh, man, I got to get on so I can get Potty up to the plate. The guys have relaxed a little bit. Manny, a little too much relaxed, Manny. Have a cup of coffee for the game. I appreciate it. Come on, buddy. I know you told everybody that, this is who you are, and yes, you are. That's who you are. So, guys, I get to go to the game tonight. I'm actually going to be a fan tonight, Braden. I'm not going to have to show people their seats tonight and enjoy the Padre fans. I'm going to sit down and eat some really good food and watch a game, and I'm pretty stoked about that. All right, guys, we'll see you at the park.
That sounds great. Have a great time, Ron. Hey, don't wear out your usher over there, by the way. They all know who you are. Don't wear out your usher. Ron in La Mesa helping us out. Giving us a nice call. We're getting close to K-State football, Ron. I'm going to need a K-State football call. He's not super sold on the Cats, man. On the Power Cat. It's not sold on him yet. How old's Avery Johnson now? Seriously. Was he like 35 at this point? K-State football right around the corner. He's my Big 12 brethren, Ron and La Mesa. Appreciate it. 833-288-973, 833-288-973. Got a couple minutes left in the hour. Let's get out to William and Escondido. William, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I wanted to bring up something that I heard in the Padres pregame show yesterday with Sammy Levitt. There was an ad by our Padres catcher, Freddie Fearman. I don't know if you guys caught that, but he pronounced his name Freddie Fearman and not Freddie Fermin. I don't know if anybody caught that or if you guys caught that. Do you have any comments on that?
I did not hear that. No. Did not.
I didn't either. I thought it was interesting though.
That's yeah. No. I have not heard a Freddie Fermin ad of any kind on the radio. So who knows? It is interesting. Maybe we'll do some investigation on that. Anyway, Joe Musgrove is back. Is coming close. We're going to talk about this in the next segment as we continue our baseball conversation, and then we're going to dive into a couple other things that are going on in the sports world. Vikings have announced that Kyler Murray is going to be their quarterback. What happened? I thought JJ McCarthy was your future. What's going on?
He can't throw the ball.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The NFL's got a massive quarterback development problem.
Would agree.
They cannot produce quarterbacks. It's very few and far between right now when it comes to some of these quarterbacks. I mean, I didn't like the signing of JJ McCarthy from the get-go, but I will say this, how about Adam Schefter's tweet was kind of crazy. Yeah, he tweeted this 2 hours ago. J.J. McCarthy missed his entire rookie season due to injury and started just 10 games last year with Minnesota winning 6 of them. Now still only 23 years old, will be forced to be a backup. What does that mean? What do you mean forced to be a backup? How about like didn't win the job? Like forced to be the backup? Like is it forced against his will? Like, oh man, you're really good enough to be a starter, but we just really want Kyler Murray. Like what is that? Did J.J. McCarthy's agent tell you this? Come on. Forced to be a backup. Didn't win the job. I think it tells you more about J.J. McCarthy when he loses the job to Kyler Murray. By the way, if you're J.J. McCarthy, like, you just got to wait it out. Like, has Kyler Murray made it through an entire season? I'm sure he has, but it just feels like he never does.
Last couple of years, I don't think so.
I don't think so. See how the Vikings are doing. We'll have an update on that in the 1 o'clock hour. When we come back, we're talking about Joe Musgrove and his impact he could potentially have on the Padres as we start the new lunchtime hour on the Braden Surprenant Show. Saturday Summer Sports Station, 97 through the Fan. overcome those things.
The takes hit different here.
You know, everybody's all worried about the Padres not hitting home runs. The Padres don't need to hit home runs to win games. The home runs are going to come. It's finding different ways to win.
This is the Braden Surprenant Show.
What's up, San Diego? New lunchtime hour on the Fan. Kyle Obenshire filling in today. What'd they call you? AliExpress Frank?
Yeah, the AliExpress Frank.
Yesterday we had Temu Frank. Today is AliExpress Frank. Frank yesterday sounded like Will Arnett version of Batman. Lego Batman. He also sounded like Kevin from The Office yesterday. A little bit. He was down bad, man.
I wonder what he sounds like today.
I don't know. If I was him, I wouldn't be talking at all.
Yeah, hopefully not
Be
talking.
resting. Hopefully just sleeping. He helped us out, though. It's great. He helped us out putting the rundown together a little bit and helped with the liners and stuff like that. So we appreciate even a day he's under the weather. Still helped the ball club. And he helped the YouTube chat out yesterday by doing the Batman voice. I am Batman. Can't do the Batman. I can do Bane every once in a while. I don't want to just freak people out though in the as they're driving around in their car. Oh, what is like, this? Yeah, exactly. My buddy did that yesterday. He tuned in and he was right at the time Frank was talking. He's like,
no.
What is going on?
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy? Doing Lego Batman impersonations? What's going on?
It's a new segment.
Right. All right. Let's get to the Joe Musgrove situation again. So we played some of the audio he had from yesterday in the pregame. He feels great, which is awesome because everything about this has been about feel. It's about how do you feel the next day? How do you feel, after pitching X amount of pitches? And it's still going to be about feel as he tries to come back from Tommy John surgery. And then the setback that he had that wasn't Tommy John related, it was something else in his elbow. But that's some pretty good news when it comes to Joe Musgrove, I think. And it is the, most encouraging Joe Musgrove update I think we have gotten since he had Tommy John surgery, if you will. So his last outing, for anybody that's didn't know what he did in El Paso, for El Paso and Reno over the weekend, but he threw 53 pitches in 3 1/3 in his second rehab start, came out of it feeling healthy, felt comfortable, and increasingly like his old self. More importantly, he says this is the best he has felt in 2 years. That's awesome. That's the best part. This is the best he has felt in the last 2 years. And that matters because this isn't about Joe Musgrove getting back on the mound. This is about the Padres trying to make a postseason push, and Musgrove potentially returning in late August or September could dramatically change how they use their pitching staff. So, some keynotes out of what Joe Musgrove talked about that we played in the last segment, and something that if you want to go check out his comments, you can go to our 97 Through the Fan Twitter page. You can hear the audio. You can watch the video. Closest Joe Musgrove has felt to a real return. I think that. Musgrove hasn't pitched in an MLB game since October 2nd, 2024, when he started Game 2 of the NL Wildcard Series against Atlanta. He had Tommy John surgery 1 week later. Nearly 2 years after that, he finally believes he's approaching something resembling his old self. And his quote that is the most important is, quote, "This is the best I've felt in the last 2 years." He also said the emotional aspect of the comeback has largely passed. He's no longer just excited to pitch again. He's focused on actually being ready to contribute. The stuff is encouraging, but command still has to come. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't pitched in a major league game in the last 2 years. It's going to take a little bit to get his pitches back. He threw 53 pitches, as I mentioned, went 3 1/3, 1 run, struck out 2, walked 0, was sitting around 94. He mentioned that he occasionally got it a little bit higher in velo a couple of times. He felt his velocity and stuff held throughout the outing, and he said his breaking ball shapes were becoming more consistent. He felt increasingly comfortable returning to his old grips, which is great news. And the biggest thing he wants to improve on is his 2-strike execution. He felt he had opportunities for more strikeouts, but wasn't finishing hitters. That is probably the most important remaining question, though. Can Musgrove get from healthy enough to pitch to now good enough to pitch meaningful postseason innings? I think that's the next stage in his progression here as he comes back from injury. But the Padres don't need to rush him back. I mean, this is where the trade deadline became extremely important for San Diego, and this is why what A.J. Preller has done has been super beneficial. Now, we saw Casey Mize bounce back yesterday, which I think is great. Hopefully, Robbie Ray does the exact same thing tomorrow at Petco Park against the Brewers. But with the addition of Robbie Ray and Casey Mize at the deadline, that gives the Padres something they didn't have earlier in the season, and that is some time. I mean, Musgrove basically acknowledged that as well in that excerpt that we played. He doesn't believe Preller wants him to come back as a 3 or 4 inning starter. The goal appears to be building him towards a legitimate starting role with meaningful length and potentially starting a postseason game or providing significant innings down the stretch, which changes the entire equation, of course. If the Padres hadn't acquired Ray and Mize, there would be an enormous pressure to get Musgrove back as soon as possible. But now they can afford to let him build up properly. They don't need to, all right, we got to get this guy in the rotation. We got 2 guys here, and one of them's Walker Buehler, who we signed to compete for the number 5 starter. We didn't sign him to be the number 2 starter. And so it's not just King and Buehler and a bunch of random days. Now it's Mize, and it's Ray, and it's King, and it's Buehler. Randy Vasquez has pitched well in his last couple of outings. So now instead of quickly getting Joe Musgrove back, it's like, hey, let's get this guy built up to being the starter that we want him to be. And he doesn't have to put that pressure on himself of getting back as quickly as possible to help the team. He can now focus on himself a little bit. So the most interesting piece of the story, of course, is Musgrove expects another rehab assignment in roughly 5 days. Doesn't know where it's going to be, but he's hoping to get to 75 to 80 pitches. He explained that he's comfortable increasing his workload by roughly 10 to 15 pitches per outing. So theoretically, 53 pitches in his last outing, up to 65, 70 in another rehab assignment, maybe from there to 75, 80, and then maybe a potential MLB return. Joe acknowledged the math could mean 2 more starts, but if everything goes perfectly, 1 more rehab start could potentially put him in position to return. It's very aggressive by the Padres, but I don't think it's reckless. Craig Stammen talked about this a little bit. Said he looked normal. He's looked normal Joe. He came out of it healthy. That's number 1. And that's the correct priority, I think, at this point for the Padres organization. They don't need August Joe Musgrove to immediately look like 2022 Joe Musgrove. They need him to be healthy, stretched out, effective, and available. If they get all 4 by September, that's potentially enormous to this rotation. Because suddenly, the ceiling for the Padres has drastically changed. We talked about that with the way that Jackson Merrill had been playing. And from an offensive perspective of how important it is for the Padres to have Jackson Merrill be at the level that he is playing at and the ceiling that he has now with the Padres, or the ceiling that he gives the Padres offensively in terms of how many games they can win in October. I think from the pitching side of things, Joe Musgrove is part of that equation too, because as they were desperately trying to put things together in the starting rotation, now the rotation looks a little bit different than it did before. So now you look at it and you got guys like Michael King, right? You got Robbie Ray, you got Casey Mize, you got Walker Buehler, you got Randy Vasquez, and now you added Joe Musgrove. I mean, you could be in a situation where, you only really need 3 starting pitchers. It's nice to have 4, but you could be in a situation where your starting pitchers come October, if you make it. Again, you're a game out. You're not in the playoffs yet. You have Casey Mize can start game 1. Robbie Ray or Michael King, we can start game 2, right? You can have the other one start game 3. Joe Musgrove could start game 4, and you can get back to Mize for a game 5. You have starting pitching to get you through the postseason now, on top of the fact that you have one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball. So how much should you expect from Joe Musgrove? I think that's kind of the big debate right now, because let's not confuse the fact that a healthy Joe Musgrove is automatically equivalent to 2022 Joe Musgrove. I think you have to give him a little bit of time, even if he makes 2 more starts on a rehab assignment. I think you have to give him a start or 2 to get back up to speed at the major league level. That doesn't mean I think he's going to get shelled when he goes out there. It just maybe a little bit more patience on how many innings he throws the first time out or maybe the second time out, right? So he has not pitched in a Major League Baseball game in nearly 2 years. He's coming off Tommy John surgery. He's still working on his breaking ball command. He's still working on two-strike execution. He's still working on pitch count. He's still working on stamina, repeating mechanics, facing major league hitters, which is a lot different than the minor league hitters he's facing. And he still has to work on recovering in between starts. So if Joe Musgrove comes back and gives you 5 innings with a competitive pitch count in September, that's a huge win for this team, I think. You don't need him to immediately become a number one starter. You don't need him to be no-hit Joe, no Joe. It'd be nice, but the Padres don't necessarily need him to do that. They now have enough rotation depth that Joe Musgrove can potentially be the piece that raises the ceiling rather than the piece that's keeping the floor from collapsing. And I think that is the most important part of this entire equation is instead of him coming in to keep this team afloat, he can now come in and potentially take them to the next level. Things are working out right now for the Padres and are moving in the direction of their favor, which is great news. Now they got to continue their winning streak, and they have won 13 of the last 17 games. They're still a game behind the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. This is a team that is doing everything they need to do offensively. This is a team that has had the elite bullpen all season long, and this is a team now with the addition of Joe Musgrove. And who knows when it happens, when he comes back to the Major League roster. But this is a team that now with Joe Musgrove has a playoff caliber starting rotation. Things are looking up for the Padres, but they got to be able to finish here strong as we're part of this final 42 games of the season. We talked about where you're going to win 60, you're going to lose 60 is what you do in the 42 that matters. Well, this final 42 of the season, the Padres are 3-0 right now. And hopefully they can continue that tonight against Milwaukee. When we come back, we had an interesting conversation in college football that we want to get to. Plus, we are giving you updates on what's going on in training camp for San Diego State Aztec football each and every day. Today, we focus on some transfers that might have an impact for Aztec football. We'll get to that later on in this hour. In the 1 o'clock hour, we're talking Padres and Brewers game 2. We're talking about the NFL and some of the training camp updates. We got a lot to get to still on the show. Don't go anywhere. Braden Surprenant show rolls on. San Diego's number one sports station, 97 to the Fan. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. Kyle Ovenshire filling in for Frank Marchese today. Is a little under the weather. Hopefully Frank feels better tomorrow. And we might see you at the loft. Who knows? Still to be determined based on how things go this afternoon. So we will talk about that a little bit later on in the show. We're going to preview Padres and Brewers in just a little bit. But we had some interesting news that involves the college football playoff that happened, you know, like the discussions that are happening this week. This is very much a show that enjoys football and a show that in the fall does cover football. Now, we don't really do it more than the Padres, obviously, especially during Padres season, but some interesting nuggets to talk about when it comes to the college football playoff and potential expansion. So this week, college football powers to be, if you will, had been meeting about college football playoff expansion. And the fight isn't really about whether 20 teams is better format than 16 or 24. It's about who controls the postseason, how much money is guaranteed, and how much access the Big Ten and SEC are willing to give everyone else. That's literally what this comes down to. It has nothing to do with like, oh, what's the best way to determine a champion in college football? No, it's about who gets the media rights, how much money are we going to get paid for this, and how many teams can we get in from the Big Ten and the SEC, since those are the only two conferences that call the shots. The 20-team there was a 20-team concept that came out yesterday. And it's intriguing because it tries to split the difference. 12 teams get into the field automatically through selection, while 8 more play for the final 4 spots. But the proposal appears to have little momentum because the Big Ten wants 24. And while ESPN may have more incentive to support something closer to 20. Biggest takeaway out of this is the playoff format is increasingly looking like a television money negotiation disguised as a competitive format debate. That's why I don't like really entertain people that like talk about it from a, oh, we got to do this for the best of college football. It's like, this is never really about that. It's more about money. You know, there are processes with this in which the college football playoff, and this is where things get interesting, with contracts. I think you have to just start. We've talked about this a lot. There's a reason why ESPN doesn't want to go more than 12 or really 16. And the reason is if ESPN goes more than 16, all of a sudden, based on the contracts, college football can now renegotiate the media rights deal. So ESPN doesn't want to give up the media rights deal that they have for the college football playoff. Because who wants to be part of the college football playoff media rights-wise is Fox. ESPN is a big media broadcaster for which conference? The SEC. The SEC says, we don't want to go more than 12. Oh, I wonder why. Is it for competitive balance? Is it for trying to find the champion? They'll say it as that, but it's really because they don't want ESPN doesn't want to have to renegotiate and compete with Fox for media rights. Then you look at the Big Ten. Who's the Big Ten big partner? Who's their big media rights partner? Is it ESPN? No, it's Fox. And what does Fox want? Fox wants more teams in the college football playoff so they can get a piece, potentially, in a bid for media rights holdings for the college football playoff. Why do you think the Big Ten wants 24 teams? They keep beating around this, but again, this is all about money. I know that's not a huge surprise to people. But in between, ESPN's like, oh, well, we want, like, here's a 20-team model. It's got to be some loophole for them in determining that it's still a 16-team playoff, and now they got this play-in. So it looks like they're expanding the field because that's what the Big Ten wants, right? But the 20 teams apparently is not something the Big Ten really wants because they want the 24 teams. So under the 20-team model, and I don't know why I'm wasting my time on this because there's no way this gets approved. But the proposed structure would essentially create a 12 guaranteed college football playoff spots through some combination of automatic qualification and committee selection. 8 additional teams would participate in 4 play-in games. The 4 play-in winners would fill the final 4 spots in a 16-team championship bracket. The conference championship games would disappear. I'm in favor of that. And the play-in matchups could potentially be cross-conference rather than simply ranking based. So technically, 20 teams would participate in the postseason, but only 16 would ultimately make the championship bracket, which is significant because of the fact of the media rights access. So this whole process attempts to create a bigger playoff, more access, relatively manageable number of games, preserve some exclusivity. This is something that like kind of molds the 24 and 16 together. But the people making the decision weren't even discussing this yesterday. The 20-team concept wasn't really on the agenda for Monday's College Football Playoff Management Committee meeting. It only came up because someone asked about the social media post from a college football media personality, Josh Pate, suggesting that the idea was gaining traction. The discussion was apparently brief and went nowhere, and that tells you everything you need to know. 20-team model isn't currently driving negotiations. The real fight is 16 versus 24, which in reality is the SEC versus the Big Ten, which is ESPN versus Fox. The Big Ten is the biggest obstacle. Their commissioner, Tony Petitti, has been very clear. Big Ten wants 24 teams. League has moved beyond its previous 16 discussions. The argument for the Big Ten is essentially schools are spending more money on players. The postseason needs to provide more access. More teams should have a legitimate path to the championship. I mean, just yada, 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 yada. We know the real ties to this. The ACC and the Big 12 also favor 24. Now, obviously, for them, it's probably to get more teams in to give them a better chance, but they don't have nearly the same amount of power as the Big Ten and the SEC do because reasons. The Big Ten and the SEC are effectively the two leagues that can determine what happens, and they're not agreeing, and that's why this process continues to drag on. The SEC's position is critical. The SEC isn't necessarily embracing the Big Ten's 2014 vision, and that creates this weird structure of the Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12 versus the SEC, who doesn't want to commit to 24 teams. And the biggest thing might be money. Money might matter more than competitive access. Again, people don't care about competitiveness in this deal. This is all about money. Conference championship games currently generate more than $200 million in combined broadcast rights fees. And if you eliminate those games, the college football playoff has to replace that revenue. A 2014 playoff naturally gives television networks more games, more inventory, more advertising. So a 20-team model that we briefly discussed doesn't generate nearly as much additional inventory. So the question isn't simply what's the best playoff, it's what's the most financially viable postseason. And then you got ESPN, who owns the college football playoff rights to the current agreement, has SEC rights, holds rights to several conference championship games, and has expressed opposition to a major expansion. Already is licensing 5 college football playoff games to TNT Sports beginning the season. One theory is that ESPN could potentially use the money it saves from conference championship games that fund the additional college football playoff games. But again, Fox wants 24 teams to try to get some inventory. ESPN wants 16. It's a media market. It's a media rights holder argument, and college football is just right in the middle of it. But this is more about Fox versus ESPN than anything else. What needs to happen for them to actually do anything about this? Because they've been talking about this for a year now. The SEC and the Big Ten need to agree on how many teams make the playoff, because those are the only two conferences that can make any decisions on this. And you're just going to be in this nonsense of throwing ideas out there. I mean, personally, if we're just talking about competitiveness and we're talking about like representing the best form of playoff and entertainment, I've always been an advocate for 24 teams in the playoff. The FCS already does it. It's not a big deal for them. It's easy. You have 10 conferences, have the 10 conference qualifiers make it. You can even have a system where you have guarantees for the SEC and the Big 10, the ACC and the Big 12. I've already mentioned it multiple times. There's multiple ways to skin a cat for 24 teams. But for me, I think it makes the most sense. Every conference is represented. That gives you 10 teams. You have 14 at large potentially. But if you go 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big 10, that gives you 8. 3 from the Big 12, 3 from the ACC, that gives you 14 teams. And then you have 10 left over, which gives you 6 other conference champions mixed in there. And then it gives you 4 at large. You got yourself a 24-team bracket, and the 4 at large are the only ones that the committee can decide the last 4 teams in, and then they can seed everybody. But the biggest thing that you need in college athletics, if you want to make it a actual bracket and an actual tournament and not an invitational, is less people arguing about who's good and more teams actually showing it on the field. It's not rocket science. This isn't a difficult conversation. It's a very easy conversation as long as you're not worried about money and all this other stuff, which apparently is the biggest driver, of course, for college athletics anyway, which I find it funny, ironic, nonetheless. But this is a topic of discussion that really is not what's the best for college football. It's never been about that. It's not the best of determining who is the best remaining team at the end of the year. It's not about competition or an equitable showing to see who has the best team in the country in Division I schools. This is about the Big Ten versus the SEC. This is mostly about ESPN versus Fox, about media rights negotiations. I mean, where have we gotten to get to a point where everything about college athletics is just about media rights contracts and not about actually competing on the field? I mean, they have lost the plot a long time ago, but this is seriously next level. They should be making a determination on how many teams make the playoffs in college football for the betterment of the sport of college football and not for the betterment of two entities that broadcast your games. It doesn't make any sense to me on that front. Some wild stuff, Kyle. Some wild stuff when it comes to college football and trying to determine who's the best to try to make it to the final stage. It's more about what company gets to control who watches what games on what platform.
It seems like a lot of like the streaming services problem, like where do I go to watch this? It's going to be on Peacock on Sunday night. It's going to be on Netflix this Wednesday. I think it really all kind of turned around once, the NIL came into play, and now they're paying players like a lump sum of money. Does that come from the schools? Where does that come from?
There's the business side. I like Hazy Steph in the YouTube chat says it right. College sports is awesome, but the business side of it is total BS. It's 100% true. There is nothing like college football. Like college football, I've said this so many times. The closest thing the United States will get to European soccer is college football. Seriously, it's the closest thing. They have the conference realignment is kind of like the promotion regulation regulation or whatever it's called. I can't think. It's not regulation. It's whatever. You understand what I'm saying? It's the passion of the fans. It's the small regional areas that can represent, and it's the closest thing to it. And it's quickly going away because of like all the money that could be made with it. And it gets to a point where it's like, we should be doing what's best. If you do what's best for your sport, the money will come. But if you do everything for money reasons, you're going to, relegation. That's what it is. You're going to kill the golden goose. And college athletics is very close to doing that. But like, to me, get rid of the conference championship games that don't matter anymore. Nobody cares. All the power conferences, it doesn't matter with the college football playoff. Make it 24 teams, win your conference, get in. Hopefully it like balances the power and schools get the right idea of going like, hey, I'm right next to the Pacific Ocean. I probably shouldn't be in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And maybe we'll get some normalcy with this. And hopefully that's the Protect College Sports Act that goes through. And now that they haven't been able to vote on that and they won't be able to vote on that until September, makes me feel like that's never going to get through. Hopefully it does. But I think college sports is worth saving because of how fun and how great college sports is. And unfortunately, they in really the form of greed by everybody involved. I'm talking players, coaches, administrators, TV networks. They are going to ruin what makes college athletics so fun and what makes it so great. And that's the downside of this. Now, if you had the 2014 playoff, you would have an opportunity going into the season for San Diego State to potentially win the conference, which they are picked second to do, and then make the college football playoff, which I think would be great for San Diego State. In fact, it probably would lead to them getting more people in the stands. to watch games if they had something to play for, which as of right now, a lot of people do not believe that is the case. I mean, bowl games to an extent can only get you so far in terms of engagement. But I will say this, Aztecs football, they get ready to play Portland State in a couple of weeks. There are 9 transfers expected to make an immediate impact for the Aztecs this year. We're going to talk about that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Why, when it ends, does getting revenge sound better than moving on? Damn, I'd love to live and let it go.
All of our guests join us on the NCCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. No guest today. Might be at the loft tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Padres and Brewers game 3 will be tomorrow. Hopefully, the Padres could take game 2 today against Milwaukee. We'll talk more about that later on in the next hour. Padres, as of right now, have, well, not that it's going to change. It will be Walker Buehler versus Kyle Harrison today. Walker Buehler 6-5, 5.07 ERA. Kyle Harrison 9-2, 2.84 ERA. And then coming up tomorrow, it's Robbie Ray and Dustin May. Ray and May on a Wednesday. That's all I got.
It was pretty good.
Not bad. Kind of lucked into that one. That will be at 1:10. 6:40 tonight, Equal Water SoCal Padres pregame show at 5:40. We'll talk more about the Padres in the next hour. We'll also give you a training camp update. But we're going to talk a little bit about Aztec football right now as we continue our training camp with Aztec football. We giving you an update every day. I will say this. I thought this to be funny. I saw this today, and I'm glad somebody tweeted this out after the fact. All right. Let me know if this is kind of ridiculous, Kyle.
I got you.
So, Bob Nightingale. We're already off to a great start. Bob Nightingale had tweeted this out, I think, this morning. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 64-56, battling for a wild card berth, are 14-3 this season against Colorado and San Francisco. They also still have 9 games remaining against the Rockies and Giants, who are combined 48 games below 500. Advantage Diamondbacks.
I think that's kind of ridiculous. Don't they have like a harder schedule? Like, don't they play the Phillies?
They do have a difficult schedule, but how about this? I'm glad the Podfathers on Twitter put this out. It's because this is also true. Because he could have put this too. The San Diego Padres are 63-57. 1 game worse than Arizona. Battling for a wild card berth are 14-5 against the Rockies and Giants. They also still have 7 games remaining against the Rockies and Giants, who are combined 48 games below 500. Advantage Padres and Diamondbacks. That's probably what he could have tweeted instead. Yeah. Now, I have to double check the math here because it doesn't seem like they have. I guess they do have 2 extra games because they're 14-3. So they're 14-3 against the Rockies and Giants. They get 9 games remaining against the Rockies and the Giants. There's not much difference between that and the Padres being 14-5 against the Rockies and Giants and having 7 games left.
You could have included both for sure.
Yeah, come on, Bob. What are we doing here? What are we
He's just
doing here?
Swing towards the Diamondbacks, I guess.
Well, he lives in Arizona, so
that makes sense.
Take that for what it's worth. But anyway, sometimes like some of the tweets by some of these guys are just ridiculous in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. If you look at the schedules, and I have this on a different file. But if you look at the schedules right now for both San Diego, Arizona, I had Pittsburgh on there because I thought Pittsburgh was going to be like battling for that final spot too, and
they kind of fell off.
They're just not. And I did not have Philly on there because I didn't think Philly was going to be part of this equation. I thought for sure that they were already solidifying their spot in the playoffs, but then they had, I don't know, a little bit of a downturn since the All-Star break. Padres this is the Padres' upcoming schedule. 2 against Milwaukee, tough. 3 at Cleveland, decent. 3 at the Mets, 3 versus Minnesota, 3 versus Pittsburgh. Arizona's got 2 against the Rockies. And then they go 3 at Atlanta, 3 at Boston. They get a break with Cincinnati for 3, and then they got the Cubs.
That's
a rough stretch. Yeah. After that, they got San Francisco for 4. Then they got Philly. Then they're at Houston, at Kansas City, and versus Texas. A little bit of a break there. Miami still staying around, and then they got the Yankees, and they finish up with the Rockies and the Padres. I don't know how much of an advantage it is for Arizona.
Maybe a soft landing, but still, it's a tough stretch.
That's a tough stretch coming up in the next week. If they survive that, then you know what? Good for them. They've earned the spot. But I still think Philly is in a little bit more of trouble. I talked about Philly's upcoming schedule yesterday. Now, they beat the Cardinals yesterday. They got the Cardinals for 2 more games the next couple of days. Then they got playoff contender in Minnesota at the MLB Field of Dreams game on Thursday. And then they got the day off Friday and then 2 games over the weekend. Miami, still battling for a spot, albeit a little bit off. St. Louis again, at Seattle. They get the Angels for a break. Then they go to Arizona. Then they got Atlanta. Then they got Houston. They got Atlanta again. They get a break with Washington for 2 and the Mets for 4. And then they finish the year, Philadelphia does, with Milwaukee and Tampa.
Yeah, I'd say
that's no walk in the park.
But I think we have the best chance just looking at the schedule. What do you think?
Yes, that was the case after the All-Star break. The Padres had the 20th most difficult schedule at the All-Star break remaining, and the Diamondbacks and the Phillies were near the top, in the top 10. So, not surprised that the Padres would have a little bit. The Padres went through a grueling May and June, grueling, but they're a game out of the wild card spot. All right. Let's talk about Aztec football for a second. 9 transfers to pay attention to. It's a very fascinating season for Aztec football because of the fact that they're entering the Pac-12 and they have an enormous amount of roster turnover, but that didn't prevent them from being picked second in the conference behind Boise State in the inaugural year of this new version of the Pac-12. And they're going to need some transfers to come in and immediately improve or play early. One of them being their kicker in Noah Cerna. I mean, he comes from Cal Poly after a strong 2025 season. 9 for 11 from the field goals last year, 20 for 21 on the PAT at a career long of a 51-yarder. 4 kickers are competing for the job this camp. But this is a sneaky important position because the Aztecs have to replace Gabe Placencia from last year, and in a season where the Aztecs may be playing a lot of tight games against better competition, obviously the kicking becomes a very valuable portion of their game. So one of the 9 starters to look out for, one of the 9 transfers that to look out for this year is their kicker in Noah Cerna. Sion Hala is a linebacker who transferred in from Boston College, and he also played at Weber State. He has produced 64 tackles, a pick, 1.5 sacks, 10 games. Might be one of the most important transfers on the entire roster. He's being paired with Tano Latuli, but Latuli is still rehabbing from knee surgery. So Sean Lewis specifically indicated that Hala has been the driving force at linebacker. He's been driving the position while Latuli works his way back. But the Aztecs have to replace a lot of defensive production. They only have 3 starters coming back from a year ago. Hala isn't just being asked to be good. I mean, he is asking to stabilize the middle of this defense, especially until Tano Latuli comes back. That gets you into Gabriel Lightfoot, who is a nose tackle, and he might be one of the most intriguing names because he played 3 seasons at Fresno State, appeared in 35 games, started 27 of them, had 66 tackles, added a sack and 4 quarterback hurries, spent 2025 at Colorado without playing because of his red shirt. He is also on the Pac-12 preseason impact list, and this is exactly the kind of transfer that San Diego State needs. Not necessarily a superstar, but an experienced college football player who's already played significant FBS football, understands the level of competition coming from Fresno State, and he's coming back to a familiar conference environment with his Fresno State experience. So, nose tackle position, someone to look out for. Jabril Rahman, edge rusher from Rutgers, comes into play at San Diego State. Wasn't eye-popping in terms of his production. He played 10 games, only had 5 tackles and a sack, but there's a reason he's important. San Diego State lost, almost its entire pass rush, and that means production doesn't have to come from one player. They need Rahman, they need Kai Wallen, and others to collectively replace the edge production that left. Offensive line is a huge story. Isaac Lucas, who is a center, spent 3 seasons at Ball State, started his first 9 games in 2025, including against Auburn. And that's good experience for the offensive line for San Diego State. And center is obviously one of those positions where experience can be more valuable than just being talented. I mean, you got to deal with protection calls. You got to deal with communication, identifying fronts, getting everybody aligned. In San Diego State, entering a relatively new conference, good to have somebody that is valuable and experienced like Isaac Lucas, who's going to be the starting center for San Diego State this year. Dennis Jones at right tackle. He is making the jump from Texas Southern. He played 36 career games there. He had 28 starts, 13 starts last season. San Diego State offensive line needs to replace starters while adjusting to this new level of competition. Can Dennis Jones come up from the FCS and become a legitimate Pac-12 starter? That's going to be a big question, but another important starter to determine how this team does in 2026, specifically from a transfer position. We talked about it yesterday. The secondary needs to replace all 5 starters from a year ago, including Chris Johnson, who went on to the National Football League in a first-round pick. This is the biggest concern, I think, for the Aztecs this year. They got a lot of guys competing for spots, but it's a lot of transfers too. Isaiah Green comes from Portland State. He has started 7 games, played in 11, had 50 tackles, a pick, and 3 pass breakups. Pretty substantial redshirt freshman season. But again, it's Portland State going to the Pac-12. Can Isaiah Green make that transformation? At corner, Michael Lindsey will help in trying to fill in the void that Chris Johnson is leaving. Obviously, it's going to be hard to fill that guy's shoes as he was a number 1 first-round draft pick, but he comes from Idaho State. Michael Lindsey does, and last year had 28 tackles, 17 solo, 1 interception, 5 pass breakups. He's another player who has demonstrated production, but now has to do it against significantly better receivers. The other one is Jamison Starks, who is competing for a cornerback position. Biggest developmental gamble for the Aztecs. He comes from Foothill College. He had 37 tackles, 2.5 for losses, 3 interceptions, 13 passes defended. Great numbers, but you're going from junior college now to potentially trying to start in Division I college football. So we'll see. And he's got to be going against a lot more talented receivers now than he was before. So those are some of the transfers that you should be paying attention to as we get closer to the Aztecs season to start. 4 more transfers to watch. Javion Kindred in the return game. This could potentially be a sneaky weapon for the Aztecs. At Colorado State last year, he was an All-Mountain West second-team punt returner. 6 returns, 138 yards, 91-yard touchdown as well. He could also play running back and receiver, which could add some depth. And special teams, very important factor in football. And if he can have an explosive return and have some of those explosive plays, because that's what you're looking for in special teams, is to generate explosive plays, that gives San Diego State something it desperately needs, some, quote, cheap offense. You don't have to drive 75 yards if your returner gets you the ball into good field position. We talked about Kai Wallen earlier. He's potentially one of the most important players in this entire group. He has experience at Nebraska and at Oregon State. And at Oregon State, he started 7 games, had 17 tackles, a sack, 4 quarterback hurries, and a pass breakup. San Diego State needs pass rushers badly. They need defensive players badly. They're replacing, again, as I mentioned, 8 players from their defense. You got Evan Lawrence that comes from Indiana, who could potentially play left guard for the Aztecs this year. Played 7 games last year for the Hoosiers in a national championship run, and that gives them something the Aztecs desperately need in terms of experience. And not only does he have experience, but he has experience in a high-level program. He's currently behind Kellen Ellis, but offensive line depth is never a bad thing. Seems like the Aztecs did a good job in the portal with that. The last one is Justice Lowe. He's a receiver that comes from Oregon. At Oregon, he had 27 catches for 259 yards, a touchdown. He appeared in 9 games in 2025, 11 games in his previous season. Receiver room has a lot of talent. Injuries are part of the concern, but a little bit more of a talented wide receiver room for San Diego State than we've seen in recent history. So, Aztecs are betting heavily on the transfer portal, and they need guys to become guys immediately for them after hitting the transfer portal hard. So that's your latest on the Aztec training camp update. Some transfers to watch that might have an impact on their season. When we come back, we'll let you know what's going on in the NFL. We'll talk more Padres and Brewers in the next hour. Got a lot to get to still as we go to our final hour. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Sports Station 97 through the Fan. Surprenant Show on a Tuesday. Kyle Ovenshire filling in for Frank Marchese today.
Been fun.
It's been a good time. Flying through this thing. It's great. Got an hour left. We're going to lead you into Gwen and Chris, and then the Ecowater SoCal Padres pregame show with Sam Levitt into Padres baseball. Padres and Brewers. We'll talk about that later on in the show. Final segment, probably. But as we broadcast live from the Bill House Studios, I want to mention that all of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. And as we do at 1 o'clock every day during this month of August and getting ready to get to the NFL season, it is time to get to our NFL training camp report. We'll see what Kyle has come up with today. All right, Kyle, where are we starting off today?
We're going to start off in New York with the J-E-T, Jets. All right, so the Jets wrapped up the first phase of training camp, like most teams, I think. Scrimmage gave us a pretty good shot of what the defense looked like. They looked pretty good. The offense struggled. Most Jets teams' offense do struggle.
The Jets.
They struggled in the red zone, penalties, pass protection. Geno Smith started pretty well, completing 5 passes, 65 yards, and a touchdown. But things kind of fell apart from there with penalties, sacks. So it's kind of rough. But their second overall pick, David Bailey, continued to look good, recording a sack and multiple pressures, but he did leave with an ankle injury. So the question is, can this new look Jets defense carry the team while the offense figures itself out?
I think they might be able to, but it's not Robert Saleh up there anymore. I mean, he had a really good defense in New York, and the Jets have had some pretty good defenses in years past. I mean, David Bailey looks like a potential immediate impact player. The number 2 overall pick already showing up early. Minkah Fitzpatrick creates pressure. Dayton Belton had an interception during camp. Jordan Clark had 2 pass breakups the other day. Darrell Jackson Jr. had a sack. I mean, this could be completely different defensive identity under Aaron Glenn, who was the defensive coordinator for Detroit and was a solid defensive coordinator at that. But the offense is concerning. Geno Smith, 12-20, 157, 1 touchdown drive in this joint practice. 6 of the 9 series began in plus territory, unable to score. That's kind of a big red flag. And I don't know if Geno Smith's got anything left. I think he was the benefit of playing in Seattle a couple of years ago, kind of resurgence. The Jets bringing him back is interesting to me. He is battling, he's not battling, but the offense has not been very good for the Jets. The other quarterback situation, Cade Klubnik was 10-14, 154, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He's battling with Bailey Zappi for the second quarterback spot. But I think the Jets defense will be pretty solid, especially with their head coach being a defensive guy. But their offense might be so bad that it might overcome how good just their defense is. So I don't necessarily think their defense can carry this team. Most of the time they can. Defense is, the saying defense wins championships, but you got to be able to score when you're in plus territory. I know it's training camp. We'll see what happens in preseason games, but not that great start for the Jets in the training camp phase. Let's go on to the AFC North.
All right, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike McCarthy is putting his team through situational football. Monday provided a good example of that. The offense was backed up on their own 1-yard line with a chance to win the drill they were doing by just getting a first down. Instead, a false start put them behind the 8 ball, and the defense stuffed Jalen Warren and forced a punt. So that doesn't look very good. Also, there's a developing quarterback situation behind starting quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, and the Drew Aller are all fighting for the backup position. So the big question is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to elevate this offense enough to make Pittsburgh a playoff team?
No, I don't think so. Because I don't think he's at this point in his career. I thought them bringing him back was a mistake. I think they should have moved on. The question is not necessarily Rodgers though. It's everything around Rodgers. I think this is a way worse version of Aaron Rodgers than he was at the beginning. Obviously, the beginning and core parts of his career. But your first round pick on the offensive line, still dealing with an injury. He returned for individual work on Monday, but didn't participate in team period, so he's a little bit away. The wide receiver situation, you have DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. They both missed Monday as well. Pittman got banged up on Saturday. McCarthy wouldn't explain Metcalf's absence, which means Roman Wilson was essentially a receiver number one. That's not kind of what Pittsburgh needs. Will Howard's looked pretty good as the quarterback number two. He's fast in. He hasn't played a game since winning the national championship in January of 2025. He's desperate for Thursday's preseason game. That matters significantly for him. But, I don't think you could judge the Steelers based on how Aaron Rodgers does in the month of August. I think you got to be judging them on, are they going to have enough healthy players to protect him or give him healthy enough players that he can throw to? I just think as a group, the Steelers team has just been mediocre for so many years now, and I don't think mediocre Aaron Rodgers can overcome that. On to the AFC South. Speaking of mediocrity.
Yeah, the Tennessee Titans, where Cam Ward is getting some serious help from their first-round wide receiver, Carnell Tate, caught up 3 touchdown passes from Ward in their Sunday scrimmage, showing his ability to win in multiple ways. One was a deep route, one was a contested catch in the corner of the end zone, and another came on a breaking out route. The Titans receivers coach says Tate can attack the football, make contested catches, run with speed, and uncover himself. Are the Titans looking at the beginning of a Cam Ward Carnell Tate connection?
It could possibly be like that because I watched this team play last year in Nashville against the Rams. Rams really beat them up, but Cam Ward was making some very impressive plays. We saw Cam Ward at Miami. We saw Cam Ward at Washington State. He has continued to put up some really good numbers. I think with the young team that they have, with Robert Saleh at the helm, of this team, I think that you might be seeing a new resurgence in Nashville. I mean, this isn't about the 3 touchdowns that Carnell Tate scored. It's about how they scored them. Deep ball, contested catch, route running, separation. I mean, he is developing into a pretty good receiver and a good target for Cam Ward to throw to. He does need more protection. He's going to need a run game. He's going to need reliable receivers, explosive playability. But Tate provides, a couple of those. He provides a reliable receiver. He provides explosive play ability, but the offensive line still has a lot of questions. So I think you're going to see some of this work out for the Titans. I think you're going to see that connection between Cam Ward and Carnell Tate, but they got to be able to keep them healthy. They got to be able to keep Cam Ward upright. And right now you got a competition at center. Austin Schlottman, the TCU Horned Frog, and Pat Coogan are battling for the center position. Right guard Cordell Volson, Jackson Slater, Fernando Carmona, all getting reps. If the offensive line doesn't hold up, none of the Ward Tate excitement really matters. And that's the case, I think, for a lot of teams. So I don't think the Titans need to find out whether Cam Ward can be the Superman that they're hoping to be. They need to find a way to protect him and keep him upright so he can make these explosive plays with Carnell Tate. But it is exciting, I think, the beginning of what could be a great connection in Nashville.
All right, we're going to go to the Chargers now. They're having one of the more interesting camps because a lot of things are extremely encouraging from defense and the offense perspective. The only issue is Rashawn Slater is now missing multiple practices. The Chargers haven't provided a reason why, and you're seeing it in the scrimmage. The defensive line dominated Sunday's practice, repeatedly getting pressure on Justin Herbert, and they're stopping, running plays that Marion Hampton is doing even before they can develop. An encouraging sign is Joe Alt is looking really good, and the coaching staff is praising him pretty highly. But the big question is, are the Chargers building a team that can protect Justin Herbert to win?
I think they are. I think the offensive line has been built up. The problem is can they stay healthy? I mean, Joe Alt's a major positive. He's a first-round draft pick, and he makes another step. The Chargers can have an excellent, offensive line. Slater, same thing, but Slater got hurt last year, right? Missed the whole year last year. There's a lot of great players on this team, especially in the trenches. But can they stay healthy? That's a component that never seems to really go the Chargers' way. They could be at their best if the defense becomes good enough that Herbert doesn't have to carry them every week, but they got to be able to keep him upright too, and they got to be able to stay healthy, and that's something that the Chargers have never been able to do. So we'll see what happens throughout the year. They always find a way to screw it up too, which is also funny to watch. But if they could keep these guys on the offensive line healthy, it's going to be a lot better for Justin Herbert. And I also think with Mike McDaniels, the OC, I don't think he's necessarily a great head coach, but he's a good offensive mind and creates a lot of great opportunities offensively. You've seen it every place that he has been. And I think with the weapons that the Chargers have, he can be a big impact, I think, for them this season. But they got to stay healthy and they got to not mess it up. And that team messes it up a lot. On to the NFC, out east, the Washington.
Yes, Washington Commanders, where they're also having offensive line stabilization issues. Laramie Tunzel is out with a torn tricep, and now they're waiting for their center to return from a calf injury. The good news is he could return next week, but I believe that Washington believes it has enough depth to survive. The question is, can Washington's offensive line depth hold up well enough to keep the offense on track?
Laramie Tunsil's a huge loss. I mean, you're replacing one of the league's premier tackles, and they're working through a center competition, left guard competition. You add the injury of Tunsil, it's not great. So now Allegretti is his return is extremely important. He's considered a favorite to start at center. Getting him back helps stabilize the interior. Andrew Wiley matters. I mean, he can play multiple spots. That's valuable during an injury crisis. Interesting note, though, Tunsil is apparently planning to undergo treatment at Washington's facility rather than return home to Houston. So I think that tells you about the commitment he's got to staying involved. And as that is going about, Terry McLaurin and Stephon Diggs both sat out on Tuesday. Today, I wouldn't overreact to a rest day following a two-hour padded practice from yesterday, but the offensive line is probably more of a big concern for Washington, especially with Jaden Daniels missing time last year. Again, got to keep him protected. A lot of the success in football comes from the trenches, and Washington losing Laramie Tunsil is a big loss. That's a huge loss for them. On to Minnesota, where they've determined who's going to be the starting quarterback.
Skull.
They just made the announcement to go with JJ McCarthy. To go with Kyler Murray over JJ McCarthy, as they have forced JJ McCarthy, forced him to be the backup.
Yeah, somehow they put him in handcuffs or something. I don't know.
I guess.
Well, I guess I'll just start off with just a random question. You think Kyler Murray has enough to make the Vikings maybe a playoff contender? I know they have like the Lions and the Bears to compete with.
Oh my, Lions and Tigers and Bears over there. Oh my. I guess at this point, the argument of why you would have Kyler Murray be your starting quarterback, he's got more NFL experience. Their coaching staff thinks he's ahead mentally. He entered camp as the favorite just because of his proven status, if you will. And you have a win now roster because Justin Jefferson's on the team and in his prime. So I get why they're going with Kyler Murray. I know that JJ McCarthy is the future because he was drafted to eventually become the franchise quarterback. I don't know. I don't really think either option is that great. Is Kyler Murray going to make it to the entire year? I mean, he's had a rough time doing that.
Solid question.
In Arizona. I just don't necessarily think that he is, the best option for Minnesota moving forward. But I honestly did not think drafting JJ McCarthy was a great idea. I mean, he had a loaded team at Michigan. I think Michigan was going to win a lot of games and win a national championship despite JJ McCarthy more than because of JJ McCarthy. So it's not surprising to me that J.J. McCarthy's already out of a job. I mean, they could say forced to be a backup as much as they want, but I don't see it with J.J. McCarthy. I think it really shows that the NFL has a quarterback development problem on their hands. On to Tampa.
All right, Tampa Bay. They have a couple young receivers, which are, they're taking advantage of those opportunities. Rookie Ted Hurst III made 2 big catches, including a red zone touchdown, while Dennis Houston also continues to make plays. The Bucs are dealing with a couple of receiver injuries with Jalen McMillan and Tez Johnson that opened the door for both of those players I just mentioned. So the big question is, are Ted Hurst and the young receivers showing Tampa Bay that they have legitimate depth at the wide receiver position?
I think a little bit of that, and I think it is a product of injuries creating some extra opportunities. Ted Hurst is intriguing. I mean, he had 2 huge plays that he made in yesterday. Leaping deep out catch, red zone fade touchdown. He's also talking about becoming more comfortable and playing faster. Important for a rookie. Dennis Houston, another guy making the most of his opportunities. Coaches reportedly love his speed. He could be one of the fastest players on that roster. Chris Godwin is the most important development. He looks healthy, which is great. He got hurt last year. Todd Bowles says he's healthy, mentally sharp, a leader, still a playmaker, and versatile, which is massive for Baker Mayfield. So the Bucs may have more receiver depth than expected, but the health of Godwin and Wirfs is far more important than anything happening with a rookie in August, especially in training camp. On to Seattle, where we'll have a new update of what's going on there with Hard Knocks tonight. I'll be tuned into Hard Knocks with the Seattle Seahawks. But let's get to the big question of Seattle as we are running out of time.
Yeah, so they're battling. There's a roster battle happening at safety. The Seahawks have several players making plays during scrimmages with limited roster spots. AJ Finley, Rodney Thomas, DeAnthony Bell all have recorded interceptions, while Ty Okada still looks like the favorite to start alongside Julian Love. A couple others have made plays, and another Nick Emawari is coming back from an ankle injury. So does Seattle actually have a difficult decision to make at safety?
They might, especially with my guy Bud Clark, TCU Horned Frog. Second round pick, basically a lock for the roster. He's going to be battling for some starting spots, but they got a lot of good players back there in the secondary. DeAnthony Bell's making plays. He intercepted Jalen Milroe, strong special teams player, has played in big nickel packages, blocked a punt last season for Seattle. It's not a bad problem to have if you're the Seahawks. I mean, Seattle needs defensive depth. They got a defensive guru as a head coach, Mike McDonald. And so it's not a bad problem to have. So Seattle needs some defensive depth, and they're going to have it with the safety position. We'll see how that continues on Hard Knocks. Seahawks play the Cowboys this weekend. NFL football back on Thursday. They had the Hall of Fame game last Thursday, and you're going to start seeing some more games pop up coming up on this Thursday and throughout the weekend. It's great to have the NFL back. Speaking of back, when we come back, we'll talk more Padres baseball. We'll kind of recap some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the show. A couple of segments left to go. Braden Surprenant Show, Standing Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. on the Braden Surprenant show on a Tuesday. A lot of moving parts.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Did you turn the PPM button on?
Yes.
All right.
We're good.
There we
We're
go.
live.
Now we're back in audio. I'm working on YouTube. Kyle's done a great job today. Kyle
Thank you.
Ovenshire filling in for Frank Marchese, who's a little bit under the weather today. As we talk a lot of Padres baseball, we talk some football today as well. I do want to get to, just kind of the status of the Padres right now of where everything's at, because we have a couple of minutes and we got to go to break, and then we'll talk about Padres and Brewers again tonight. But Padres sit. I've been watching seeing if the Padres can get back to a positive run differential, because every time they get close to doing so, they have like a blow up game. So hopefully tonight is not one of those nights. But their run differential has climbed up to -9, which is not great. You still want it to be a positive number, but that was way, way worse not too long ago. The Padres have had arguably the best offense in baseball since the All-Star break. They've had arguably the best offense in baseball since July 1st. And if you look at where they're at in standings right now, they're a game out of a wild card spot. Philadelphia's got St. Louis this afternoon. Arizona is going to play another game against Colorado. And a 1 win and a loss by either of those teams, the Padres are actually back into a playoff spot. Now, I will say this. When it comes to the tie-breaking situation, it's imperative that the Padres take 2 out of 3 from Arizona at the end of the year. They do not have the tiebreaker over Philly. So it's really like a game and a half behind Philadelphia, because if you finish tied, you are SOL on that particular deal, because not only did you lose the season series, but you went 0-6 against Philadelphia. So that's something to monitor as we continue this. They have a 2.5 game lead on Miami. They have a 3.5 game lead on St. Louis. They have a 4 game lead on Washington. So the Padres starting to distance themselves a little bit from the rest of the pack that is competing for a playoff spot. And as of right now, it's basically the Padres, Phillies, and Diamondbacks battling for those final 2 spots in the NL wild card. I don't know if Atlanta is going to hold off LA for the number 2 spot. As of right now, they are, even though they're tied for the number 2 spot in the standings. I think the Cubs are they're just continue to bludgeon teams, it seems like. And the slug has been, prevailing for Chicago. And it's been outdoing their pitching that has been a little questionable because of the fact that they have had so many injuries to the starting staff. But the Cubs are 5 games behind Milwaukee. They could play their way into a potential division situation in the National League Central. I don't think they're that crazy out of it yet, just because of how they've been playing. But we'll see what happens later on tonight. When we come back, we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk Padres and Brewers, what we expect. We're going to have Kyle give a bold prediction for the game as well as we wrap up the show on the Braden Surprenant Show. Standing as Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Braden Surprenant Show on a Tuesday, leading to Gwen and Chris will take over for us in the next 30 minutes or so, less than 30 minutes, as they will lead you into the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show at 5:40. First pitch, Padres Brewers at 6:40 tonight. Very interesting pitching matchup that we're going to talk about in just a little bit as we get you a preview of Game 2 of this 3-game set. Tough series against Milwaukee. Be nice to win 2 games here at home. That means you would at minimum split the season series against Milwaukee. Don't necessarily know if that's going to be an impact or not. That in terms of like positioning in the playoffs, you would need really the Cubs to surpass Milwaukee. I think they're capable. I think they're capable of doing it. Just the way the Cubs have been playing, it just seems like they're going to catch Milwaukee. I don't know why I have that feeling. They're 5 games back. There's like 40-something games left. It's not a lot of time to make up ground against Milwaukee for the Cubs, but they just, I feel like it's going to be the reverse of what happened last year, where the Cubs had it and then lost it. And then if that's the case, if you have a tiebreaker maybe against Milwaukee, now you would have to sweep Milwaukee to win the tiebreaker. But it's something to monitor nonetheless. Plus, you need to rack up as many wins as possible. Philly has St. Louis tonight, and Arizona's got Colorado. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to the phone. Let's get out to Poway. Steve and Poway wants to weigh in. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Braden, I'm going to, anyway, I just started listening today, but I'm going to make a really controversial statement, but it's what I feel. And so I want to tell you, number one, I don't think this team's a world championship team. Okay, let's start with that. Number two, it would make me, honestly, this is my feeling, it would make me sick to my stomach if this particular team won the World Series. I've been watching these guys since 1969, and I in no way want to remember this team as the best team in Padre history, with half the team batting below 220. Manny Machado's been an absolute joke at the plate all year. Bogart hasn't been any better. Half the team's down there because they play good for a week and a half at the end of the season. I don't know how you feel. I've been following these guys my whole life, and I've watched a lot of Padre baseball. And if I have to remember this team as the best team in Padre history, literally make me sick to my stomach that I had to do that. This is not the team that I envision winning a world championship.
Steve, I appreciate the phone call. I think a lot of people just assume that, when you win a World Series, if you ever win a World Series, that everything's going to be perfect the entire time. I mean, you can't really pick, like, how good the team is. I sit here and watch this. I said this team was done before the series against Miami. I mean, think about what they have done in the last couple of weeks to get to this position where all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, they're back in it. They bought at the deadline, everything like that. But I did at one point during that stretch, I was like, it would be, I honestly, I had this thought. I said, it would be honestly hilarious if this team won the World Series because of how negative fans have with this team that they were so frustrating through the entire year. And this is what this is why I continue to say this. And people just think it's me being a shill for the team and like being over toxic positivity, whatever it may be, which I think is a joke. Anybody that knows me in my personal life understands that I should probably be more positive and not as negative as I am. But I think for all the people that have complained, bitched, moaned all season long about this team, for this team to magically, I don't think they're a world championship team either. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, and I think if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. But I think it would be for everybody that just doesn't like the pessimistic Padre fan that has to just be miserable all the time. I think it'd be hilarious for this team to win the World Series. I think it would be hilarious for this team to win the World Series because think about it this way, Kyle. For everybody who's been super negative about this team from start to finish, about they like having to complain about somebody. This is not directed at Steve. There's been a lot of other people. But like the people that have been on social media that complain every single day about this team to the point where you go, why do you even watch this team? Like, you don't have to watch them. If you hate them so much and they've caused you so much pain in your life, why would you even watch them with the amount of complaining that you do? I think it would be hilarious if this team won the World Series, because I thought of this mostly negative Padres fans that just want to talk smack to me for no reason, like it's my fault when they lose. They would have to remember this entire season and the fact that they were miserable through it and did not listen to anybody saying like, hey, look, it's baseball. You got to play 162 games. They will not actually enjoy the season that was a World Series championship season for the Padres. I think that would be ironically hilarious, because I think at this point in time, for those people that have been miserable about this team for this long, if this team magically won the World Series, I would consider it magic if they were able to do that. It would be hilarious that they would have to remember this season, which they decided not to enjoy the ride, not to have the perspective of like, you know what, this is a lot better. This is a lot better than what it was way before. They would have to actually look back and be like, I did not enjoy one game because I was miserable the entire time. And the team I'm going to have to remember is the World Series champion, Padres, if they did it this year, which I don't think they will, but if they did, they would have to understand that they did not enjoy the ride at all. I find that to be ironic, Kyle. I think it would actually be hilarious, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think it would be awesome if they won.
Regardless of how like frustrating they were. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, I get it. It was like, you don't get to pick though. It's not like you're like, hey man, I really want this team to be like, I want a perfect season where we just dominate from the get-go and we win the division and it's just a fun team and the season's fun and they win the World Series. You don't get to pick that.
Unfortunately, it's a team sport. It's a long season, as you mentioned, and like you're gonna lose a few games. You're not gonna look your best all the time. I'm in it for the ride. I like the ride. Was I panicked before the Marlins? Yes. I was thinking like, oh, we're gonna sell. Like it's not gonna happen. Not very consistent. But they turn it around after the All-Star break, and I'm keep the faith, as my girlfriend likes to say, keep the faith. So that's what I try and do.
Yeah, when you have to realize, I said this like 2 months ago. Now this is in the prime, like Padres were just not playing well. I said this 2 months ago. I said, yeah, I think it was when the Padres beat Atlanta. Remember they swept Atlanta? It was false sense of hope, right? Again.
Oh, we were all so
and then they
excited.
beat the Dodgers like the next day. Like, oh, wow, there it is. The false sense of hope that things were turning around faster than they did. I remember seeing Braves fans just absolutely crash out on social media about how that team is terrible and how they'll never amount to anything, and like Acuna sucks because he's never healthy, and this team is just not it. It's just like people just like to just throw their emotions out on social media for no reason. But like I asked the question after that series, does anybody actually enjoy watching their baseball team play?
When they're winning,
does anybody actually enjoy watching their baseball team play? It just seems like every fan, social media fans are crazy. I just feel like everybody thinks that like it's just so miserable watching this. I'm like, why do you watch? I don't understand. Like, it's not the NFL.
It's just easier to.
It's 162 games. Like, there are games where I get incredibly frustrated watching the Padres. You know what I mean? Like, all right, well, get tomorrow. Kind of where you're at with this. You play 162 of these things.
Yeah.
Your favorite team is going to lose 60 games guaranteed.
At least.
That's what you do in the 42. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. That's what baseball is. Maybe you just don't like baseball that much. I don't know. It's just like, I don't think you can pick and choose what the World Series team is like. I think when the Rangers, do you think anybody in the Nationals fan, like, do you think the Nationals fans cared about like 2019? Now, here's the other thing too. If the Padres actually pull this off, which again, I am pessimistic about that. I'm at this point going, this team is good enough to make the playoffs, and let's see what happens in the playoffs. But I'm not sitting here going like, hey, look, this team's going to win the World Series. Haven't seen that yet out of this team. But if they did, you know what you're going to remember from this year? You're not going to remember anything of the bad of this year. You're going to remember the 3 weeks in October is what you're going to remember.
Yeah.
You remember anything from the season. Maybe you remember some of the highlights of Gavin Sheets hitting the home run against Milwaukee with down to the final out strike, whatever it is. Maybe you think about some of the big games that have happened. I mean, already I couldn't even tell you some of the bad losses that they've had this year. I've already forgotten about them because it doesn't really matter. I mean, does anybody remember in 1998 when they went to the World Series, the awful September that they had? Does anybody remember that month? Do you remember those games?
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do. I mean, I don't. I was 3 years old, but
Yeah,
I don't
same.
think anybody else does, right? You're going to remember the comeback. You're going to remember if this team ends up winning the World Series, you're going to remember Joe Musgrove was hurt the whole year and then he shoved in the playoffs. It's great. That's what you're going to remember anyway. So as frustrating as this team has been to watch for the majority of the season, up until basically the All-Star break, if this team won a World Series, you wouldn't remember any of the negativity of May and June. You're going to remember the big highlights of the games that happened. You're oh, well, that was fun. I don't think anybody remembers the downside of some of these years. Oh, yeah. That Padre team won the World Series, but, they really shouldn't have. We should have sold Mason Miller at the deadline. I mean, come on. What are we even talking about? You'll remember the good times, not the bad. Let's get out to Dexter in Spring Valley. Dexter, what's going on?
Hello, gentlemen. Okay, I want to hit on 2 points. Point number one, irony. You're talking about irony in that last caller, right?
Yes.
You know what would be even more deliciously ironic? Padres go to the World Series. They win. Who's the MVP? Bogart.
Xander Bogart.
Think about that. That would be so deliciously ironic. Am I right?
It would.
Because of
100%.
all of the hatred that he's received from fans. And then all of a sudden he's the World Series MVP for the Padres. Not the Red Sox, the Padres. So ironic.
That would
Number
be,
two.
yes.
Number two. Sorry to cut you off. Kyle.
What's up?
I have been trying to get through to either Ben and Woods when you were there or now. And this ties into yesterday and Frank's Lego Batman impression.
Uh-oh.
But Kyle bears his celebrity doppelganger. He bears a striking resemblance to the actor who played Batman for over 30 years, the late Kevin Conroy. Google his image, punch that up, he and Kyle are almost ridiculously, the resemblance is there. Granted, Kyle is the younger version of the late Kevin Conroy,
See how
but
Dexter did
nonetheless, the resemblance is striking. So I'm going to leave it at that. Again, live on the irony of the potential of Bogarts being World Series MVP for the Padres, and let's hope that the Padres can get at the very least 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee, if not sweep the Milwaukee Brewers. Go Padres!
Appreciate it, Dexter.
Thanks,
You had
Dexter.
I Need Money in the YouTube chat. Just had an aneurysm thinking about that. Thinking about that possibility. 833-288-973. 833-288-973. Let's get out to Brandon in Carlsbad. Brandon, what's going on?
Brandon, well, let's keep kicking the old wasp nest of irony and cynicism. And for me, toxic positivity. 2026 World Series champions, the San Diego Padres. Hey, you know what, everybody? Let's start drinking that Kool-Aid, baby, because Brady kind of took the thunder I was going to talk about in the sense of 2019 Nationals. Look at, man, anything's always possible. Baseball is crazy like that. There's so many variables. If we're going to weigh on the side of actuality, probably not, but let's just get toxic positive real quick and just say 2026 World Series champ.
Let's go.
You guys have a good rest of the day.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Absolutely. Is that reality? Probably not, but let's just talk about it like it is. It's great. 833-288-973. 833-288-973. Let's get out to Martin Santee. Martin, what's going on?
Gentlemen, this is the best afternoon of my enjoyable listening to both of you. So welcome, Kyle, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, irony, you hit it on the head. This is like, how can you be a fan if you just don't enjoy our team? This is all we got. This is our Padres. This is the team that is, yes, frustrating to watch. Sometimes I just can't even watch the game. It's like, oh, no, it's done. It's over, and then maybe the next day I read about it. Kevin Acey said, oh, they came back, whatever. In any event, yes, I agree with you, Brandon. I don't think they're quite World Series-esque, but, stranger things have happened, and everything is starting to hit. So really, as a fan, and true, I mean, for Steve, it's our team. It's no matter what. You go back to 1969, I go back to early 70s. I don't really care what he said about it, but at the end of the day, if we make the World Series or just the joy of winning the World Series, if that ever happens, you know what? He's going to be in the front row on Harbor Drive watching the parade, as we all will be. So anyway, keep up the good work. My best to Frank in his absence, that he gets better. And this has been one of the liveliest and most entertaining afternoons that I've spent with you and 97.3 The Fan. So take care, enjoy the day, and thanks for everything.
Absolutely, Martin. We appreciate the phone call. This is crazy, the thing. I mean, think about that for a second. Think about for 1 second that the Padres win the World Series for the first time ever in franchise history, the first major championship for the city of San Diego, and then saying, I'm not going to enjoy it because the team was frustrating during the middle of the season. That is just next level pessimistic. Just next level. It's at that point, man, really? I don't feel like they've never won in my lifetime. I've been watching since 1969, and they finally did it. But this is not the team I want to win. I was like, what? Come on, man. Can we have a better? I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that to be true. I don't actually believe that he would be upset that they won the World Series because of the fact that it wasn't the team. I can't. There's no way. I can't imagine. Let's say they win the World Series. Broadcasting for the parade. Phone call. What are we feeling? You know what? I'm not enjoying this. This team didn't deserve it.
I can't believe, man.
This is not the team. This is not the team. I know they did it, but they just got lucky at the end. It's what? What? If that's the case, then if I have to say this, if you don't want them to win the World Series now because you didn't like the way they played in May and June, then why would you watch them the rest of the year unless you're watching to root against them, hoping they don't actually win? I mean, we went to a place where it's you don't even want them to win anymore because you don't want them to win the World Series because this isn't the team that you want to remember as the World Series champion team. What are we even talking about? I mean, the more I think about this, the crazier it sounds. It's really? Brutal. All right, Kyle, we have a couple of minutes left. Not too much time. We usually do a bold prediction at the end of the show for tonight's game. What is Kyle Ovenshire's bold prediction for tonight's game?
Jackson Merrill, 4 for 4 home runs, 4 home runs in 4 straight days. That's what I think. I think he's going to go yard once again. Is that bold enough?
You said 4. What you say? What?
4 home runs in 4 days. He's already at 3 home runs.
He's got 3 and 3. See, Jackson Merrill gets another one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty bold. This one might be even bolder. Walker Buehler outpitches Kyle Harrison.
That's a good one.
Kyle Harrison's 9-2 with a 2.84 ERA, 11.3 strikeout per 9. Just returned from forearm tightness, 10 strikeouts, 5 scoreless innings in his last start. Shut out San Diego for 5 innings in Milwaukee in May. Walker Buehler on the other side is 6-5 with a 5.07 ERA and an 8.31 ERA since the beginning of July and hasn't completed 5 innings in 4 of his last 7 starts. I think Walker Buehler gets 6 done, and I think he outpitches Kyle Harrison tonight for my toxic positivity bold prediction. That's it for us. Kyle, great job today filling in. Appreciate you helping us out today. Very good job. Gwen and Chris are coming up next. I will talk to you guys tomorrow on the Braden Surprenant Show. Hopefully talking about the Padres series win over the Milwaukee Brewers. Should be a tough one tonight for the Pods at 6:40. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Peace.